Hey, everybody. Welcome to Amongst Friends podcast. This is Nick, Barrett, and Brandon. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing good.
Cool. Well, glad to be
How are
here,
you doing?
guys. How am I doing? I'm doing good. I'm
Yeah.
excited to be having this conversation. Let's see if we got any chat before I start going. Looks like we got Brandy. Hey, Brandy. And then I think the other person is actually me. Um, But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So today's topic of conversation is movies. Our favorite movies, just movies we're looking forward to, or history with movies, things like that. So we're going to kind of go around and each share our different experiences and thoughts on movies, kind of what we remember about them. Just, I guess, a quick recap of the effect they've had on our lives and memories we've had in our lives because of them and stuff. So I'm going to go first this time. Um, so yeah, movies. So I love movies. I'm a big movie buff. I think we talked about this a little bit when we did the music conversation. That was a topic where I didn't feel as acquainted with as movies, even though I listen to a lot of music. But yeah, movies have always been like a really passionate thing in my family, right? So when I was growing up, the first movies I remember seeing were a lot of like actually black and white movies. My dad always liked watching like older movies, like the old black and white King Kong and different movies like with Marlon Brando and stuff like that. So we would watch like the what is it? Turner Classic Movies is what I remember, and they would just play all these older movies like Alfred Hitchcock and stuff like that. Um, and then also like some TV shows like The Twilight Zone and stuff we would watch. So that's kind of like originally what I grew up on. And a lot of those were clean, I guess you could say. Growing up in like a really traditional Christian family, there was a lot of stuff we wouldn't watch. So the older stuff seemed to be a lot more palatable for my parents. So that's kind of what we stuck to for a while. And then beyond that, I remember definitely a lot of Disney movies, but I think we talked about this in other sessions. Not much. If it had any kind of illusion of magic, like or magic where the kind of force of it was either dark or kind of unknown, that was off the table, right? So but we saw a lot of Disney movies, but it was like Lion King, um, Toy Story, you know, and then on occasion they would let one slip through that had magic in it, like Aladdin or something like that. But I remember a lot of those. And then I remember movies like Homeward Bound a lot, Home
Oh yeah.
Alone,
Oh yeah.
Look,
Nice.
uh, yeah, and stuff like that. A lot of Steven Spielberg stuff was actually for some reason okay, right? So like Indiana Jones, I was about to see when I was like 9 or 10, and then like even Jurassic Park, which is like great. It doesn't even make
Indiana
sense why.
Jones
Uh,
Raiders.
yeah, uh-huh,
That's
right.
brutal.
So,
That gets
yeah, it
brutal.
was like this weird, this weird double standard um, of what was cool and what wasn't. But it was really key things. It was like no sorcery, nothing demonic or magical or anything like that. So yeah, but like E.T., Star Wars, which is also weird because there's the Force in Star Wars, right? So like that was that was an argument growing up. My parents was like, well, that's like magic, kind of, right? Um, but it wasn't for whatever reason. But yeah, so I grew up loving movies like that, and that was just something I always like could connect with my dad on was movies. We weren't like a household that listened to obviously a ton of different music. We didn't play any instruments or anything, but we watched a lot of movies together. And I remember whenever we went to the movie theater, I don't know about y'all, but when I was a kid, that was like a huge experience. Like I feel like we've taken our kids to movies tons, and the older they get, the more you can take them to, and it's actually a fun experience. Um, but yeah, I remember when we would go to the theater together. Like I remember seeing Prince of Egypt in theaters, and maybe don't think about it, but that was an awesome one to see in theaters. Like that had such cool set piece moments, um, and was really powerful on a big screen. But yeah, those were like the best memories. If we found out we were going on our way to the movie theater, we were like psyched out, and then we'd sneak a bunch of candy in because the concessions are so expensive. Um, but yeah, when I got into like my late teens and early 20s, I think my taste in movies like started changing a lot from my parents. So I started getting really interested in like a lot of indie movies, I guess, and movies that were weird and obscure and just like wanted to see as many of them as I could and stuff like that. And then, with that, watched probably like 30% of the movies during that time I watched were like really disturbing, weird stuff that now I'm just like really sensitive to. So I'm a little bit more specific. But my favorite movies, have always been like science fiction, cerebral thrillers, something that gets you like super on your edge. There's a sense of like mystery in it, and I'll get into what some of those specific favorites are later. But um, yeah, love movies. But my love of movies have been trumped by video games over the years, but movies have kind of always been a close second. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Um, I remember, so I'll kind of go through like what I remember from the earliest, because I know my first movie in theaters was The Lion King, and I was
Nice.
I was really young, so this is like just being told like that was the first movie I ever saw in theaters, and at 2.5, 3 years old, it's a little intense, so it didn't go well. I think we had to leave early
It
for that.
didn't.
No. I was talking to my mom about it, and she said that it was a little, it gets a little. I got really upset at the family was going through stuff at the time. It was like poor timing to see like a father get trampled to death. So
Oh yeah,
yeah, that
that.
was a little hard on me that young. Um, and then at 5, I saw Beavis and Butthead Do America in theaters, and I remember that. I remember that vaguely. My stepdad took me to see it, and uh, see, I got into Star Wars really young. He got me started on Star Wars probably around 5 or 6 years old, and um, got to see the limited editions released whenever they came out in theaters. So like all the special editions I saw in theaters. Um, Toy Story, that was a huge one. Whenever I was a kid, I had my first dog was named Woody. Um,
Mm.
and then I mean now, I mean, Star Wars, Harry Potter, that whole series, definitely like bringing my favorite books to life. The Harry Potter series was just like insanely good in the beginning. And I remember whenever not being at the age to where like I cared how much it was different from the books. I was just so happy that it was a movie. And then I think it was around when the fourth movie came out, I remember. And then I started becoming more of a stickler. I was like, okay, we're going a little far from this, but I still really enjoyed those to the end. Like they were incredible. Um, Lord of the Rings, it's like some early memories of going to see in the theaters. I love that. I remember getting to the end of Fellowship of the Ring and being like, so it just ends there. um,
Mm.
but like I know my stepdad's a huge influence for a lot of movies growing up because he always had DVDs, and we used to go to Blockbuster and rent DVDs. We had a Before Blockbuster, we lived in Georgetown, and there was a video store called Take Two Video, and we used to go there a lot and rent out all movies all the time. And then I think once I got to a certain age and I realized I had a game system, whether it was a Nintendo or whatever. Whenever I realized you could rent games too, I'd quit caring about renting movies so much. Um, but yeah, I've got a long list of like movies that I love that I'll just kind of save for that part of the conversation. But um, my favorite experience is like as far as like movies that I remember seeing in theaters and stuff. Like I remember Star Wars Episode 7, we went and saw 3 times, and I loved it every time. Like, and it was so fun to experience in the theater with Kanan, and whatever random friends we had with us that time. The and also I got to shout out how whenever I met Kanan, she had seen the Harry Potter movies and seen a few of them here and there and never cared for them. Around the time we got together, Deadly Hallows Part 1 was in theaters when we went and saw it, and it inspired her to read the books. And in between parts 1 and 2, the year that was, she read all the books and finished the 7th book in the theater while we were waiting on part 2 to come on. So like right up to the moment. And I just remember thinking about how awesome that was. And yeah, so the Harry Potter movies in theaters, seeing them all on release day, like that was a huge thing. Um, loved all like comedies, the Adam Sandler verse. A lot of those end up being my favorite movies. Just I love the kind of the stupid, silly humor. Um, yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, for me growing up, a lot of Disney, a lot of Star Wars. I think one of the I can't remember because I think so. The first movie I remember going to the theaters to see was probably Jim Carrey's like How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Um, and then the second movie I remember was probably like we went to like the midnight release of Harry Potter, and due to my age at the time, I watched the movies first and then read. But my brother was the opposite, where like he read them. So that was my gateway into it, and to the point where heck, I probably watch those movies, you know, at least once a year, you know, if not more. Um, almost like a seasonal thing. I don't remember. I don't think we watched as many of them last year, but yeah, those were always big. I and I'm glad you brought up Prince of Egypt too, because I vaguely remember going to see that with like a church group or something. Um, but I think one of also too along those lines, I remember going to see Passion of the Christ in theaters, and like just
Mm,
I don't know. I felt like I was
yeah.
probably too young at the time, but it was probably my first experience of seeing subtitles or anything in a movie. And like I don't like this. I'm not enjoying this to the point now where it's like it's hard for me to watch anything without subtitles. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, I remember like a lot of like deep cut '90s movies like Air Bud and Indian in the Cupboard was
mhm.
always a favorite one.
Oh man, good call out there.
Yeah, I watched that. I don't know how many times as a kid. Loved it. My brother even had like a similar cupboard, and so always used to play with it. And but I think a lot of my influence comes from my parents for the most part, outside of Harry Potter with my brother, and it was like two ends of the spectrum where I probably a lot of horror movies that I probably shouldn't have been watching, and then a lot of comedies I probably shouldn't have been watching. Like, I mean, Barrett brought up one of them with Beavis and Butthead. Like, definitely watched that way too young.
Mhm. A five was definitely too young.
But yeah, I mean, as far as horror movies goes, Nightmare on Elm Street was always my favorite. just because it had that touch of comedy in it, where a lot of other ones didn't. Outside of stuff like Evil Dead, where it was just unintentionally funny, just because the quality was so bad. But but then I guess around the time start late middle school, early high school, I started getting into more. I guess I don't want to say like art films, so to speak, but like a lot of the heavier hitters like Pulp Fiction and
Hmm.
like Silence of the Lambs and Fight Club. Uh,
Hmm.
like one of my other favorite ones to the point where like I quote it like just in passing all the time is like Sling Blade was always a good one.
Mm.
Um, but I think as I've gotten older, I tend to enjoy more like coming kind of age movies like American Graffiti and Dazed and Confused. Um, stuff like that I can watch, 100 times and it never get old. Typically though, I go back to mostly comedies. Um, Half Baked is something like I could watch a million times. Uh, but as far as like going to the movies and stuff, like the past 10, 15 years, there's been so many Marvel movies like come out that like between Marvel and Star Wars, it's like okay, those are the movies I'm specifically going to see that like budget wise I can't afford to go see anything else. So that's been a tradition is just like going to see that. But even that the past year or two, it's been so oversaturated that it's been really hard to keep up to the
Hmm.
point where I'm between movies and shows, I'm behind on Star Wars and Marvel
It's just too much nowadays. I
for
mean,
sure.
it's a hard thing to say. I'm glad there is a lot of things, but at the same time, there's too much for one person to be into so many things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, funny you mentioned yeah, Passion of the Christ, Barrett, as you were talking about, just memories of actual theater memories, which just got me thinking. And Brandon, you said it. That was one of the ones I wrote down was, yeah, going to see Passion of the Christ was pretty heavy experience. I remember our whole church brought like everybody to go see that movie. And man, that was a lot. I remember this being really emotional experience, and then also like pretty traumatic as well and stuff. But there overall, I think that's a pretty great movie. Well, I don't know if it's a great movie. It's a great story, but it's like when you see it to see the story, but maybe not. You don't watch it and eat popcorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
And feel okay with it. You're definitely gonna feel
yeah,
guilty.
yeah, it feels.
There's-
But one, there's one I want to share with you. The best movie theater experience I have, and I think you guys will appreciate it. I'm gonna try to get through it without like crying, laughing. Um, because to me it's so intoxicatingly hilarious. But it was Star Wars, Revenge of the Sith. We saw it in theaters. I remember seeing it. I saw it in Nashville, Opry Mills Theater, which is a great theater to get to see that at. Um, and we went. It was me and my parents, and they were really good friends with the pastors, and they were fans of Star Wars too. So we went with them. And my mom somehow snuck. I don't know if I told you all the story, but my mom somehow snuck in like a 5 pound bag of jelly beans. Like so, the thing is like it's like this tall, dude. It's like a vat of jelly beans, and she's brought this in, and I don't even remember how she brought it in the theater, but because it was so big and heavy. But her plan, was to like pass it amongst ourselves and share it during the movie. Well, um, so it's coming from her side, and I'm like the last one on the right. My dad's to the left of me,
oh
and
no.
and the previews have started, and so they're past these jelly beans. And I'm sorry, guys. This is so funny to me. My dad hands it to me like this, like he's like fully supporting it, right? Like he's like, because it's like literally so tall and cylindrical bag, but like if you don't support it, it's just gonna fall over, right? So he hands it to me, and then I just put my hand out like this, and I'm like looking at the screen watching the previews. Well, he just ends up like grabbing it and like setting it in my hand. Well, I just grip the bottom, and then he lets go. And I'm watching the previews, and this thing just starts melting, like pouring over to the side, and jelly beans are cascading down his body. his, his body. They're going down the steps of the theaters in a waterfall. Like I'm 5 pounds of jelly beans. I remember it was 5 pounds because we made a point that it was a 5 pound bag of jelly beans. And I'm like, and so what's funny is in that moment, the credit that the Star Wars logo hits the screen, right? Where you need to read and stuff. So I like was not doing anything to help him. And I just kept telling him to be quiet. I was like, it's starting. And my dad is literally he's literally scooping jelly beans off of himself and slinging them down. And I was laughing so hard, but also trying to pay attention to the movie. Um, and it was pretty considerate of me, but really made for a hilarious moment. But yeah, and then it was I've always loved Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, that's one of my favorite movie theater experiences. I laughed so hard, and there was just jelly beans everywhere. We're like leaving the theater, we're stepping on jelly beans and crushing them, and I was like, let's just get out of here quick before somebody asks what happened. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah. On that note, I don't know. I used to like the theaters a lot more, but yeah, there hasn't been anything like so much lately that I really wanted to see in theaters, or that ended up being a better experience seeing in theaters than seeing at home because now we've got pretty big TVs and good sound systems and stuff, so it's kind of taken the joy of some of that away. But question for you guys: what's like uh, when y'all see a movie trailer, or you're interested in a movie that's coming out, what is it that usually grabs you? Is it an existing property that you're really excited about, or is there a certain type of genre of movie that gets you excited? Um, things like that. And
Uh,
same for you, chat.
I think with a trailer coming out at this point, I feel like it for me like something that it's an existing property that I'm familiar with will get me hyped up the fastest. Um, like especially if it's something like anticipating. If there's some random like I don't know, live action adaptations don't really work on me, but like I don't know, like the Deadpool 3 trailer that just dropped, like that got me hyped
Mhm.
up. And I've not been hyped up for Marvel in a hot minute, but like that I'm extremely excited for. All the Valentine's Day pictures that I keep seeing with Wolverine's hand and Deadpool's hand, I'm just like, I can't wait for this. Um, but then, I mean, there's definitely, I couldn't tell you really what it is about a trailer that would pull me in, like, but I don't know, something that definitely sparks like wonder in me being like, okay, I need more of that. Like, um, I can't really think of an example, but um, yeah, I don't know. It's it's a toss up with what's going to get me excited, but if it's existing or, something that I'm already kind of familiar with or an entry point to something that I'm interested in and haven't had a chance to get into and it seems like, oh, this would be kind of for everybody in that vein, then that would get me more hyped up. But
I'm definitely along the same lines of existing stuff. Just because it's easier to get invested in something if I know that it's either connected to something else or that there's going to be more of it in the future. Um, at least as far as like going to the movies, because it is, especially like concession costs, like it is such an investment where it's
Hmm.
like if I'm gonna go to this, I want to at least know that it's like, you know, a sure thing that it's gonna be at least enjoyable. So it is harder for me to take chances on unproven stuff, unless it's something from like a director or something that I really enjoy. Something like that, you know, for the most part, you know what you're getting there. Like any Tarantino movie that were to come out going
Hmm.
forward, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't have any doubt. Um, but yeah, typically just like stuff I'm already invested in, like Barrett said, like with Deadpool, like that movie, like at least the first one, it's one of the few movies I went and saw in the theaters multiple times because I enjoyed it so much. Like Ryan Reynolds, the perfect casting for Deadpool. Like knowing that it was more a passion project for him, and just knowing that it was going to get done right. And then now to the point where ever since um, Disney purchased 20th Century Fox, like I've just been waiting on like the inclusion of the X-Men in the MCU, and
Yeah.
like Deadpool and how he, you know, breaks the fourth wall, stuff like that. Like it's the perfect way to, if there's, you know, it's already going to be messy because, you know, whether it's actor we enjoy or like just because we know of these other like X-Men movies, stuff like that. Like because we know it exists, like it's already going to be a little messy as far as how it translates over. But with something like Deadpool, it's like it can be as messy as can be and still be enjoyable. I mean,
Yeah.
just due to the nature the character he is. Um, but like that, alongside the X Men animated series, like continuing from the '90s, like just like the perfect time for like the X Men floodgates to open up. Um,
That could definitely get me interested again for sure.
Yeah.
uh,
I love that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Barrett.
well, no, you can keep going on that. I was gonna acknowledge Bryson's talking about Disney movies. I was just gonna say like that's that would get me in excited and into the theaters now, other than something like Deadpool. Like when Ollie gets to a point where she's more accepting of going to the movies and like wanting to be in that kind of environment, then going to see any new Disney movie that's coming out is going to be a lot more exciting. It, I don't know. For the last few years, we've had a kid, so like going to the movies is a little bit harder to pull off, and there's not been anything necessarily we've had to go see. So, but like Moana 2, we are already getting Ollie hyped up for that. Like we're trying to get her back on the Moana train. That way we can get her to a point, showing her the right Bluey episodes to get her encouraged to want to try out the movies. But that'll definitely get me more hyped to go see something like that because I do like that experience. I loved it with especially like the biggest and most recent is like the last trilogy of Star Wars, Ep 7, 8, and 9. It was a downhill thing, but just the hype of going to the movies for that and going and so we went and saw episode 7 in theaters 3 times. Like I I absolutely loved that experience every single time, even though the third time we fell asleep. But it was like a lullaby. It was at that point. It was just I'm already testing it out and seeing how it is whenever I Netflix and chill it. Turn it on to go to bed.
Yeah, I like this.
But
I like this topic of Disney movies and also Star Wars movies. Like, what are going back to Disney for a second? What are like some of y'all's favorite Disney movies and why? Like my probably my very favorite is Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Although I say that, and there's probably 5 or 6 or 10 more that I could think of that I like better. But it also is like I feel like there's eras of Disney, right? So like this is my favorite from the 90s. This is my favorite because then there's Pixar, and I feel like Pixar and the older Disney movies they're different in style, right? So
yeah,
I hate to like say, oh, I like Toy Story or something more than Lion King, right?
It's different.
But overall, the one that I feel like I always want to watch is probably Atlantis, The Lost Empire. And I just remember when that was coming out, like I saw the trailer for it. I thought it was the coolest looking thing ever. I think I was probably 10 or 11 when that was releasing. And I think the reason I dug it so much is I think it had also everything I love about video games in it, right? This big adventure, and they're going to this unknown area and exploration, and there's all these cool characters. And then I remember they showed that Leviathan robotic creature underwater in the submarine. And I thought that was awesome. And it just had all these just cool things, in my opinion, to like a 10, 11-year-old boy that would just be like, oh my God, I've got to see that. Um, and then for the most part, I think it lived up to it. And I think it's a lot different than a lot of the other Disney movies, but I think that's probably my very favorite if I had to pick one. What about y'all?
I,
Brandon,
well,
if you want.
for me, like Lion King holds a special place, but that's more so like because of my family. Like I remember around the time like it first came out on, I guess it might have been VHS still, but I just remember like my dad got like a new surround sound system and for the house,
Mm,
and just like anytime a guest comes over, it's like he would like start it up and go through like that first like circle of life sequence to show like all the animals like running around, and like it's just like I mean, it was like every time a guest came over, like, oh, check this new sound system I got out, and
That's the way to do it.
yeah.
yeah, man.
But as far as like personal favorites, I'd say as a kid, like Fox and the Hound and Oliver and Company were like my two favorites. Um, Fox and the Hound's obviously a tearjerker, but
Hmm. Heavy movie.
I also I remember liking 101 Dalmatians as well, but it's one I haven't seen in a long time. Um,
Oh wow. Yeah.
It didn't feel as old of a cartoon whenever you were younger, but we've rewatched it a few times in the last year, and rewatching it now, you're like, man, this is this is old.
yeah,
This is early animation, but it's still a great movie.
but
A lot of
That
as
one was one of my
Dalmatians.
favorites.
but as an
Uh,
adult, I'd say stuff like um, Black Cauldron and Sword in the Stone are
Mm.
probably my
mhm.
favorites. Um, just because I mean I don't know. As I've gotten older, I have started liking more of like the older stuff. Um, we can talk about it in a little bit, but like even down like what you mentioned earlier about black and white movies and stuff like that. Like I'm kind of to the point now where I kind of prefer it. But I mean as far as Disney goes, what are your favorites, Nick?
Well, I mentioned, you know, Atlantis, but like of the older, I don't know, favorite Pixar movie is probably Up. That I love that movie. I didn't think I would, because it looked like the most boring concept. I remember when it was coming out, I was like, this looks like the most boring concept for a Pixar movie after seeing Toy Story and Monsters Incorporated and stuff. But man, I ended up being really unique compared to all the others. And then yeah, super heavy with the subject matter, of course, like Disney can be in the first 10 minutes, with some of the history of the characters and stuff like that. Um, but that's one I love a lot. The Finding Nemo, I'm sorry, Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, I think are excellent movies, not just animated movies. They're just some just excellent family movies. And something that I think is cool about those movies is they really feel like you're reading a children's book. I always thought that when I saw Finding Nemo was like the story of this, fish trying to find another fish and stuff. And I know something really charming about that, and that there's not like really any fantasy elements to it whatsoever. But that it's so, I don't know, just good. It's good writing. The characters are great, really powerful scenes in it and stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to think of the older ones. I really like Brandon, that you mentioned the Black Cauldron. That's such a cool movie. It's so different than it's like that old, what is it, like 70s, 80s dark fantasy
Yeah.
style, and there's not too many Disney movies that went as dark as that, like visually.
I don't remember
Um,
that one.
I think you'd like it. It's like it's super metal. Like I'm just thinking of the
Yeah.
art from it, and a lot of it seems like something you'd see on like a rock metal album cover or something like that. You should look it up. There's just like the villain in it is like this skeletal dude with antlers and stuff, if I remember.
Yeah.
What's funny is
Uh,
I remember reading about that movie.
it
It
looks
didn't
like
do
Peter
very
Pan
well
and
for
Wendy.
Disney.
It's like Link.
Maybe it
It's
kind of
almost like
is.
Link is the main character. That looks cool though. I'll
Um,
have to watch that.
Yeah.
I
You
definitely
want to
like
check it
Sword in the
out.
Stone.
uh,
Sword in the Stone was a great one.
and somebody mentioned in the chat, Cold Slippy in the chat mentioned Treasure Planet. That was one of the last ones I was going to mention. Love Treasure Planet. I don't know if it's like, I don't know. It's I don't know, I just like sci-fi, and then I think it's cool how they adapted the story and put all Morph, that little alien in Treasure Planet. Do y'all remember him?
Yeah.
That dude's awesome. I was playing something recently, or a game or something, where there was a character like that. He was pink and he could change all these different forms. My kids were like, "Hey, it's like that dude from Treasure Planet." So, yeah,
He's,
those are a
yeah.
lot of mine. What about you, Barrett?
Older favorite ones. Peter Pan. I love Peter Pan. I loved Robin Hood. Um, and then Toy Story hit hard, but like now watching it is almost traumatic, especially certain ones. Like we rewatched Toy Story 3 a few months ago, and I was like, I don't think I can ever watch this again as an adult that knows too much just about like trying to just the way he like passes on his toys to a new child was like, oh my God. Um, but so the Toy Story movies were a huge deal for a long time. Lilo and Stitch, I love Lilo and
Oh,
Stitch.
that's a good one.
Um, I remember like the it'll take me a second to remember some of them, but like like underdog movies here. I don't know if y'all
Yeah.
remember any of the Disney Channel original movies.
Yes.
Um, but
Oh,
there were a lot of good ones, and I watched
yeah.
them way too much because we had cable, and I mean that would just be what was on sometimes. There would be nothing on Cartoon Network, nothing on Nickelodeon, and you'd flip over to Disney, and there'd be some Disney Channel original movie like The Luck of the Irish,
Dude,
or
that was my favorite
Oh my
one. That was
gosh.
my favorite
that
one.
was a good one.
Yes. So
Brink,
good.
a
Oh
lot
man.
of like, there's a lot of really good ones of those. I wish I could remember more of them.
Me
Even
too.
Stevens movie is
Yeah.
still hilarious. Like we probably
Yeah.
watched that about a year ago. Like it's like not only was the show one of my favorites, but the movie was so good. Um,
Man,
but yeah,
Shia LaBeouf was so funny. It's crazy to
so
think that
funny.
he to me he was one of the funniest actors before he evolved into the form we have now, which is not
Gotcha point.
necessarily bad, but he's not funny for shit anymore.
No.
Um,
Uh,
but God, was he hilarious in everything
yeah, it's so good.
that was even.
Um, nowadays, like I mean, now that Ollie is really receptive of a lot of movies, and she's getting into like she's gotten into Frozen the last year, and I've been around Frozen for so long and just avoided it. And I'm finally getting a chance to like kind of give a lot of these new movies a chance because I didn't probably since like 2018, 2019, I hadn't seen any like new big Disney movies. And since Ollie's gotten into them, Encanto has become one of my favorite movies of all time. Like that's
Hmm.
like a top contender in Disney for me. And it's mostly channeled through her love of it, but like the songs are so good, the story is so good, the family aspect is just really, I don't know, I loved it. But it hit me at the right time, and that's what a lot of movies kind of end up being. If I get really into something, it's like it hits just something about it clicked at the right time, and definitely Encanto is definitely that. I see, yeah, Goofy movie in the chat, bro. That's a
That's
extremely
that's
goofy
up there.
movie with the X Games. I
Mm.
was a punk skater kid, so like I remember that just being like the best of both worlds. Max was the coolest Disney character ever whenever I was a kid.
Not only that, but the pizza and then the spray cheese.
Oh yes,
The
Never wanted
Leaning
anything
the
to
Tower of
leaning to
Pisa.
cheese. Yeah,
Polly Shore,
everybody.
man. Yeah.
like
Yeah,
perfect casting for that character. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, my mind's kind of all over the place right now, just because like I mean, from like all the things y'all are bringing up, and then like stuff I'm seeing in chat, like yeah, we
Mhm.
just recently like what rewatched the Goofy movie. That was a favorite growing up.
So good.
You brought up Lilo and Stitch, and that just brought back like memories of like
Mhm.
early 2000s. Like my dad was always into the cars and stuff like that, and so we were always always going to car shows, whatever, on the weekends. And anytime there would be a weekend where either I couldn't go or my mom was working, whatever it was, like it would just my brother would end up going with my dad, and then I'd stay home with my mom. And like she'd always make it a point, at least like one of those days on that weekend, like since we're here like stuck together, like we're gonna go out and do something. So I remember we went and watched Lilo and Stitch together when it came out, and yeah, those weekends were always special because it'd be something like that along the lines of like going to see a movie, and then I'd go like buy a CD, and like she would let me actually like control the radio while we were in the car, and it was like the first chance I had like freedom with that, and just like special because there was never like any judgment. I could play like any kind of music I wanted to, and like didn't matter what it was, and like she was just always game for it. But yeah, I
Cool.
mean, there's yeah.
I could
Then
say about Lilo and Stitch. Sorry, like while we're on that, like the show, there was a show for it. I don't know if
yeah,
y'all watched that where they're like recollecting all the
I
different
did.
experiments and even the like we used to play the DisneyChannel.com had all the um like flash games where you're like the food one and you're like catching all the making sandwiches and you're like going
hmm
back and forth across the stream like building up a sandwich, building up huge sandwiches. Like I remember I loved Lilo and Stitch. That one took over for a minute.
Yeah, it's funny you'll say that. I remember being legitimately hyped about Lilo and Stitch. Like, I maybe Disney did such a good job when is there even a Disney Channel besides Disney Plus anymore? I don't know, but they did such a good job like pumping that channel full
XD.
of commercials, and yeah, they had so much stuff marketing it so well, and it looks so fun and colorful and everything. Do y'all remember though the commercials where they would have a Disney movie scene playing and Stitch would come in and crash it? Do y'all remember seeing those? There was one for Aladdin and several other movies where,
Clear.
yeah, so you have to look them up. I had forgotten about them, and then that popped up on YouTube. And there's one where that's like Jasmine and Aladdin are riding the magic carpet, and then Stitch, like, I want to say, drives up next to them and says something profane in his own language, and then they're keeps on doing it. So super, it almost had like a Deadpool vibe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where he's kind of breaking the fourth wall a little bit. Um, that was a great movie. I really enjoyed that. They're doing a live action one, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that
I don't
they
know when it's coming out.
leaked pictures or something, like pictures leaked of the new model for Stitch, and it apparently doesn't look that bad,
Oh
but I
yeah,
haven't seen it.
I'll have to look that up. But that's hard to nail, right?
Yeah, I
But yeah,
mean,
we can.
we could talk about that or not, but I haven't seen any of the live action remakes, and I mean, I'm sure they're great. I hear uh, different things about them, but the way that those movies live in my mind are the originals.
And
I love that.
Yeah. I won't. I mean, I wouldn't say that like I don't really consider any of them bad, but it's just more along the lines of okay, the animated movie was so good, like this isn't necessary. Um,
It's it's like whenever I was saying like you would rather like get uh with like trailers what's going to draw you in at this point. Whenever I see one of those trailers, I'm like pushed further away because it's just I don't know. You're taking the thing that I love and I
Yeah,
feel like you're exploiting it.
yeah. I don't know. My feelings are mixed on those as well. Sometimes I get excited about them. Like I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about Lion King remake. On one hand, I'm like, oh, this is the music's there, right? And it's better than
John
ever.
Favreau did it.
But then
That's the thing. I mean, I
what's
trust that
that?
guy. John Favreau directed it,
Yeah, like there's a
which
ton of
I
good that's
mean,
good about it, but then it's like, oh, did I is this better being photorealistic? Did I need to see this in this way? So, yeah. I think decidedly I like more original stuff. I don't like all the remakes and stuff like that. But jumping back to something we were talking about earlier, and I think y'all will like this this one. Um, Star Wars. No matter who you are, that's like a big monumental movie
it
series in your life
owns
as
the
long as you've
theater
seen
culture.
them. Which can y'all answer this? Which Star Wars movie is your favorite of all of them? Do you have a favorite? Mine, I mentioned earlier while you're thinking about it, is Revenge of the Sith. I thought uh I thought it was the best of old and new at the time, right? It had a lot of like the new special effects and stuff that had improved in the prequel trilogy, but it felt the most like Star Wars. It felt to me at the time felt the most like the original trilogy. And then I thought Hayden Christensen gave like an incredible performance, especially as the movie progressed and it got to that final conclusion and stuff. And to me, it had like the most memorable music out of all. We talked a little about this last session, like Duel of the Fates is like to me my favorite Star Wars track, even though it's very stressful and not necessarily pleasant in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's my favorite personally. See if the chat has. Go ahead.
Um, my favorite, it's either got to be Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi. Um, I have a top three: A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith. I don't know how to put them in any order. Um,
That's fair.
but for the much of the same reasons what you're talking about with episode three, like that was just an intense, amazing climax of like,
Mhm.
I mean, we started that trilogy knowing that this kid was going to come become Vader. How is he going to get there? And then just the level of expertise with a lightsaber that Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen both had for that whole last 30-minute fight is just you can't deny that. Like that, the extremity of that is just incredible. Um, but being introduced to Star Wars through A New Hope and my first real Star Wars movie theater experience that I know that I remember is Phantom Menace and the pod racing in theaters was
Oh
just
wow, yeah.
like just such a huge thing. And I was about the age of Anakin in that whenever watching that. So like it just
Mm.
I don't know, like there is something really special about that. Um, so yeah, I'm just gonna say those three for sure. I mean,
No,
Return of the
I
Jedi
love it.
just being like the culmination of the original story, and I don't know, I love uh Luke's choice to be a Jedi like his father before him and throw his weapon aside. And I don't know, I just love the whole climax point of that movie where he decided to let his father live instead of striking him down like he could have or giving into the darkness. He chose the right path, which Anakin could have done too, and then eventually did choose to. I don't know. I love how that all wraps up for sure.
Mhm. Definitely.
So for me, I'm gonna go a little bit off the beaten path, but
I swear to God, if you say The Last Jedi, I'm leaving this chat.
so my favorite one's probably The Last
Ooh.
Jedi. No, no. So no, for me, I think Rogue One was probably my favorite. Um,
Mm. That's a
It's a
good
great
one.
one.
That's a great one.
because
Hmm.
I think
Truly.
it might have
That's
been one of the first movies like where it didn't necessarily revolve around the Jedi or the Force. Um, and compared to the sequel trilogy, I think it or no, the like the last trilogy. It
mhm.
introduced new characters. I mean, much like it did, but I think a, a lot of the new characters that were brought in Rogue One, I think fit better, or at least were executed better. Um,
Yeah.
but content wise too, it was a little darker and a little grittier, and it kind of even though the rebellion was still still the good guys, it kind of gave you a darker tone and kind of like a um, how they were still kind of fighting for freedom, but in a darker way. That it wasn't necessarily always clean, um, and then you got to see kind of like more aspects of the war aspects of Star Wars, and then then seeing how they actually like tied it in was pretty cool too.
It's incredible with that one that they can take one line from episode 4 and turn it into a whole thing where they were able to get plans to the Death Star. How'd they get them? Here's a whole movie about that. And it literally like bridges the gap between like, have you watched Andor yet, Brandon? I know you said you're behind on a lot of
I've
things.
watched the
If
first half of the season, so I
That's
haven't
it.
seen.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
guess I
Well, you've
haven't
seen
seen
enough to
after
know
the
that it's
time jump.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's been. I've loved what I have seen of it.
Yeah, I was about to say if you like that movie that much, like Andor is super necessary. It's so good, and it has even more of a dark tone like that. It's just incredible.
Is there a scene in Andor that's as good as the end of Rogue One where Vader tears through? Because that to me, that scene, I could go for a whole movie of Darth Vader being Jason Voorhees. Like, give me that movie where he's just hunting down somebody and it's
There's
just
there's
horrific.
no
Yeah, I
Vader
thought that was
hallway
so
scene,
cool.
unfortunately. You can't top a Vader
That
hallway
scene,
scene.
do y'all agree? Okay, that scene though was just
But
that would have been worth it to me for the ticket price alone.
the
But the movie
way
was great
that that
too.
show is structured is every 3 episodes is like an arc,
Mm,
and every third episode 100% has a moment where you're like, oh fuck, like this is awesome.
mm,
And then you get kind of like a new like little, it's all one story obviously, but they go through like arcs of the story and they do it within 3 episodes very blatantly. Like every 3 episodes is a story arc. So like every third
okay,
episode, you're getting some climactic shit's gonna happen. And so it keeps a good pace like that.
gotcha.
Gives you the slow
No, those are
grittiness,
all
and then that third episode you're like, oh my god, oh my god, gives you enough power to power through the next 2 episodes so you can like see where this goes.
gotcha. No, those are all good picks. And back to the jump on a different movie series again, Brandon. Being a fellow fan of X-Men, like that's probably my favorite comic book group of heroes or whatever you want to call it. What do you think of the movies that have already come out? Right, like I'm really excited to see as well what Disney does or 20th Century Fox Disney does with it. I'm kind of hoping they do lean more towards that older series look and feel. I don't know how well it'll translate to like a live action style, but there's something about it. Um, that's great and feels the most like X-Men to me. But yeah, what do you think of the X-Men movies that we've gotten so far? Did you like them? Do you have a favorite? Because there's been a
Um,
lot now, right?
yeah, I've liked most of them. I mean, I think that first X Men movie kind of like that alongside Spider Man kind of like kicked off just
Yeah.
superhero movies in general being popular. Um, I really liked First Class and Days of Future Past, but I don't really like where they went with the two movies after, with Apocalypse and Dark
Yeah.
Phoenix.
I forgot about those. I haven't even seen. I don't think I've seen those.
And then New Mutants wasn't bad either, but like you could watch that movie and not even know it's even related to Marvel or X Men. Um, it might be a little controversial, but I never really bought into Hugh Jackman being Wolverine all that much. Um, I don't really know what it is in particular, but yeah, like in a way he kind of took that role over, much like Robert Downey Jr. did with Iron Man. But but yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious who they're gonna be because I think they're gonna be replacing him going forward.
Hmm.
I'm curious to see how they're gonna do that and who it's gonna be.
I think that'll probably be a big plot point of the movie, actually. Or maybe I'm just hoping it will be, but I think it would be great to see that. I know you guys have seen the rumors of what Daniel Radcliffe was one who's been rumored for years. And then there's that other kid from like the Kingsman movies. Or I say kid, but he's our age and stuff. Do y'all have an actor you'd like to see, or are you just kind of open to whatever? I've also heard the guy who played Bane. What's his name?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. I heard, yeah, which, yeah, I don't know. He's already played Venom, and then he played
Yeah,
Bane
get
and
him.
stuff.
He's
So I
got
don't.
his.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
got
like, I
his
don't need to see
persona.
him. Yeah.
I definitely am voting for Daniel Radcliffe. I just want to see him do it. Give him a prominent Marvel role that he can really lean into, and I don't know. I think he would kill it. I think
I
it'd be
I
a
think
lot of
so
fun.
too.
He's got a lot of energy, and um, I know. I mean, he can. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like his voice might be the only thing that would be kind of weird. He'd definitely be having to put on but it's not to say he can't do it, but it's going to be a definite like, oh wow, he's really trying for the voice acting part of it too. Because I don't know. I feel like you just need like a gruff American,
Hmm.
accent, and not to say he can't do it, but it would just be funny to see that voice coming out of him, I guess. But that's my vote for him. I think that would be great.
I think that'd be really cool. It'd be like he's had. I personally believe he's had good movies since Harry Potter, but
Yeah,
Hmm.
I do too.
I
he's
think so
kind of
too.
been like put in that corner though of like he's Harry Potter, and it would just be it'd be nice to see like a redemption of sorts, at least in the the casual fan sense of like doing something new. Um,
It's definitely a role that could pull him out of that.
yeah, he'd definitely have to put on a lot of weight, like too, and get bulkier.
Yeah. Well, he's
But
already built. He would just be
Yeah.
right now. They could make him look bigger on screen, maybe. But I mean, he's a tiny built guy. It- I don't know. He
Well,
would definitely have to like.
that's kind of why he's perfect for it. I mean, Wolverine in the comics, I think he's like 5'4" or something like that. Like he's supposed to be
yeah,
um not on the tall side. Like Hugh Jackman's like 6'2" or something, I want to say. Maybe taller. And that's something that apparently I didn't pick up on that like in the animated show and stuff like that, but I guess like really hardcore comic fans
yeah.
were like didn't feel he was right for it because of that. But I think Daniel Radcliffe would be great, and I think he's got the right build for it.
Yeah,
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's a movie he was in called Horns. I don't know if you guys saw it,
yeah.
but
Yeah, I
it's
saw that
yeah,
one.
you guys did. I think that's a great movie, and he did an American accent really well in that. And that was probably 10 years ago or something, maybe. So I mean, I think he's old enough now to where he could, um, just kind of carry that role, a Wolverine role really well. I'd be cool. I'd be totally down for it.
Yeah.
Good or bad, I'd be like, hey, give him a shot. Blame us for it if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. Even seeing him in movies like Guns Akimbo, like stuff like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
where like he has like shown like a an unhinged side. Like I think he could definitely pull it off. Like, but but yeah, I mean I think they got to go back at least at least if they're going to set it apart from Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, like they got to like you know they got to kind of go back to his like savage roots or something. Um,
Well, I can't wait to see how Deadpool's even going to bring Wolverine into it. He's gonna
yeah,
is he gonna go back to before Logan
Hmm.
died and like, grab him at the last moment and pull him into a portal and take him with him? Like, hey, you're gonna rewrite the universe with me.
it's definitely
Like,
it's definitely going to be like that's going to be I mean in a weird way like more so from more so like a buddy love, but like that's going to be like the love interest of the movie is just like Deadpool like professing his love to Hugh Jackman the whole time. uh, but I think it'll be really good, and it's I mean I've enjoyed like all the Marvel movies, but it's definitely been the one movie in the past 2 or 3 years that's gotten me like hyped and excited to go to the theaters to see something. Outside of like I think the last one was probably Spider Man, and just having the like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire like show up in
Mm.
those, like even though I think everybody knew that was happening, like to actually see it just
Hmm.
like take place was special.
Yeah, I agree. I still remember seeing the original Spider-Man. That was another
that, yeah,
big movie
theater
experience.
experience that I forgot about. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I went and saw that with my
I
mom and
remember, did you like it? Did you guys love it when it came out, or did it take you some
loved
time?
it.
I
No, it
loved it
was an instant hit. Instant hit.
because that was on
It
like
took a
not
little bit of
only
time for me.
yeah.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say like not only the movies but like the games that came out with it were good too. So like it
Yeah,
was real
yeah, yeah.
easy to buy into it.
Yeah, I remember seeing it and be a little weirded out at the time with how they were using CGI on Spider-Man and stuff. But I think the second time I saw it outside of theaters, I was like, I didn't care. I was like, no, that was great. Great story, great casting. The action scenes were cool um and stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah, it was a good time to be a Marvel fan and a Spider-Man fan when that came out. I think it's a good time right now too. Speaking of Spider-Man, like as its own subgenre, the Into the Spider-Verse movies are like no joke, some of my favorite movies ever. Like to probably my favorite animated movies I've ever seen. Like I couldn't believe how good the first Spider-Verse movie was. Just the writing, the animation styles. Like it's probably one of the most creative animated movies. Or I guess I could say creatively animated movies, right? Where they just went and they said, hey, make it do whatever you want, like totally different art style for this part of it and whatnot. So I can't wait for the next one of those. But between that and the games and everything that we've gotten over the past several years, it's like prime time for Spider-Man.
Dude, the Spider Verse
Uh,
movies have just like totally set themselves apart from like anything else that's animated. Like
mhm.
I mean, there's so much that goes into it, but like, I mean, just any scene like you stop it on, like there's like you could point out a million different things of like all the work that went into like making it what it is. But yeah, it's really stood out like against any other animated movies. I think the only thing that's came close is the newest um, Ninja Turtles movie was really good, where like it kind
Yeah.
of had its own art style like that. But I think with at least this last Spider Verse movie and the way that um, the way the last live action Spider Man movie ended, I don't know, it kind of took the mantle as like the Spider Man franchise. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for me at least, just because like there's like uncertainty with how a little bit of uncertainty of like how they're continuing with Tom Holland, and then all of Sony's like spin-off Spider-Man movies have been
Mm,
more missed than hits,
yeah.
and like Venom and Venom 2 were decent, but
Mm-hmm.
Morbius was so bad it became a meme, and like this Madam Web that's coming out's already in that territory as well, and it just came out. And then the next movie, I
Yeah.
think,
Got to use that license.
yeah.
Yeah. Before you use it or lose it, right?
Mhm.
And then the next movie is Craven, and I'm curious to see
Yeah.
how they're going to do that as a standalone movie without Spider-Man. Um, because I mean, it seems like that's what they're trying to do. Like they're trying to like do these spin-offs to build to like a bigger universe, but like much like a lot of the DC movies done, like they're not. I don't know. I don't feel like they've been good enough to stand on their own to eventually like come together. Like the way the MCU done that was like I don't know if we'll ever see that something that big again. Where now you've got what like 20, 25, 30 movies where it's like all connected.
Yeah.
Daunting.
Yeah, yeah. Infinity War, or was it Infinity? What? Okay, there's the two Infinity
Endgame.
War movies or Endgame.
Endgame.
That that was like the peak of Marvel greatness in my opinion, and also not that it abruptly ended, but it started tapering down. And but
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that, it'll ride some new wave of just like
Yeah.
the best movies we've seen out of Marvel because they were just genuinely good movies for the most part, up until Endgame. Seeing that in theaters, I still remember the moment where um, Captain America
Oh, that's one of
pulls
like the
Thor's
best
hammer
like
and
movie
just,
scenes. Period. Yeah.
I
oh,
got
dude,
cold
the
chills.
whole
You just
theater,
bringing it up.
dude.
Like
I remember looking at me and Odin both went. My son Odin both went at the same time. Just went, whoa!
Thor's like
And I looked at him and I said,
really
that was cool. Like,
so
yeah,
cool.
it was a magical moment. And the
Hmm.
theater clapping and there was so much well done. It's just, I think it's rare, in my opinion, for them to get like the right actors, the right directors, the right everything to make it that good. Like, so like I try not to be too hard on like how the Marvel movies are now because they haven't clicked with me. And I'm like, these just aren't, they're missing something. But at the same time, I have to remember that like you get lucky, I think, making a really good movie in a lot of ways, right? Like I'm sure that some of these directors they don't walk away going like, oh yeah, that's exactly how everything we planned went. It was like I'm sure they walk away from this stuff going like, that was a nightmare. 2 years, 3 years of effort and filming and editing and all these choices and nightmare issues. And they probably are like, oh, that was a close one when it comes out and it's great and it's as good as they want it to be. So, but yeah, Endgame and a lot of the earlier Marvel movies just
Yeah.
they were just on fire with the quality and how good they were.
I
And
was
that
caught up everything with everything up to Endgame, and I think once they split off and went to TV shows and started kind of breaking up the story and different things, I remember being like, "This is where I'm going to end up diverging." But everything up to Endgame was so much fun. I think Civil War was probably the first one that I had a hard time getting through. It was the for me that one was a hard one to like. I don't know.
I think
I think the thing
for
that's made it. Oh, go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I know the first like four or five movies like the original like standalone Thor and Captain America. They, in my opinion, those are some of the worst ones of the whole collection. But even those
Mm.
weren't
I loved
even those
Captain
weren't
America.
that bad.
Yeah, true. Thor: Dark World though, that
Yeah.
one was
Oh yeah.
meh.
Oh yeah, that. Yeah.
But
But
it's
they also set the bar a couple times higher since
Yeah.
then, you know?
yeah. But at the same time, like you mentioned that one scene where he finally picks up Mjolnir, and it's like that.
It was all worth it.
If that was just one movie and that happened, it wouldn't have meant as much. But the fact that there
Mm-mm.
was what like I don't know
Four
that.
Avengers movies before that.
Well, I mean, just in general, there was. See, I think
Yeah, there's a lot. And then all the other individual movies and end credit scenes.
Uh, yeah,
I
and
think
in credit
I think
scenes.
there was
what
there
what's
was 22 Marvel movies before Endgame,
wow.
and there was seeds planted like all the way throughout where just as something as simple as like a drinking game where like everybody's like trying to pick up the hammer, and then like Thor sees Captain America just barely nudge it, and it's like he knew all along, or at least from that
It was so
moment going
good.
on that like
It
that
was.
was possible. And
The payoff.
so yeah, I mean it was just something like that where like moments like that were definitely strengthened because of how much they put into it. But yeah, it definitely seemed
Yeah.
like that you know with Endgame they obviously had a path in mind of like where they were going. And but that being such a good movie, it definitely was like the turning point, or at least to a low within the MCU because it's kind of been I it, I don't know if the next goal they're trying to get to is clear, especially just with personal issues going on with like Jonathan Majors and the Krang stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's where they were going next, and it seems like they're probably going to have to pivot a little bit on that one. Um, but I think the next big thing is like getting X Men in, and they've already they've
Let
already
Deadpool fuck shit up.
yeah
You
that
know, let him fix it.
not only that I think it's actually going to be rated R too. So
Good.
Disney putting out a rated R movie
That's
is
wild.
is a big thing too. And then they just announced the cast for the Fantastic Four the other day, and it's like okay, here's probably the last chance to try and get this right. But I think
Yeah.
I think you know this team's probably
With all the
one that
tools
can
they
do it.
have at this point and everything it's connected to, definitely like the it's there. They just got to do it right. Because I feel like the last few times they've tried to do Fantastic Four, they've been limited, more limited than they are now.
Hey guys, I'm having an audio bug. I'm gonna hop out and jump right back. Hello, hello.
All right, you good?
Yep. Can you hear?
Yep, all better. It was just starting
Okay.
to sound y'all had been taken over by the Borg.
Well, I want to, if y'all are okay, we can pivot to another question because I actually had a question for you guys.
Yeah.
What are like the most quotable movies? Like a
Oh,
few of the most quotable movies like that you've ever watched. Like you can think of them all off right on the spot. You know, not necessarily asking for quotes, but like, what are those movies that you're like, I could watch it anytime, all the time? It's like,
I'd say most of those are probably gonna for me would probably gonna be comedies. So like
yeah,
Half
yeah,
Baked,
that's what most of mine are
um,
too.
like Half Baked. I could probably recite like all of the Cheech and Chong movies. Um, like I know you like the second Anchorman, Nick, but I think the first one
mm-hmm.
is probably probably the more
More
quotable
quotable.
one. Yeah. Um, but outside of comedy movies, my favorite movie and probably the one I would put up there quotable wise too is Dead Poet Society.
Mm, that's a great movie.
Yeah, I love it.
Uh,
We getting some great call outs in the chat too. Hot Rod,
Yeah.
Shrek.
Hot Rod is one of mine for sure. Uh, Me and Kanan both love Hot Rod so
Yeah,
much.
it was a good one.
Uh, Also, Kung Pao. If y'all have seen, I'm sure y'all have seen that. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. But no, I don't think I ever have. I've seen the trailer. I remember the trailers for it and stuff, and by the time I wasn't allowed, I guess, able to see it, I had no interest at that point. But
yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Uh, Kung Pao is like one of the most quotable, hilarious movies to me. The Goonies is probably, if I had, I always say it's my favorite movie. Like it's my favorite movie of all time, just because it's been with me the longest. I can quote it from front to back. It still makes me laugh. Um, so definitely Goonies. Any of the Thumb, I don't know if it's kind of the same vein as the Kung Pao, the same guy made them, but the Thumb movies, like there was Bat Thumb, Thumbtanic. It was like variations of major movies, but they were all redone with thumbs.
I
They're
don't think
so
I'm familiar
stupid,
with
but
those.
they're so damn funny. Uh, just dumb humor. Um,
what about? I
uh,
got a couple.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I'll ramble a few off. Like
Me
also
too.
quotable, the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Uh, I can take us to the end
Mm,
credits. I can get us
nice.
all the way there. I promise you.
Um, Mrs. Doubtfire. I remember
Ooh.
for a long time there was a lot of quotes from that movie that you could throw out there. Oh, and that's one of my favorite movies as well. Yeah, on that topic, real quick, Robin Williams. I'll watch anything with Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And when he passed away, I thought I lost like a family member. I remember that day too. But anyway, anything Robin Williams, probably any movie that I've seen with Robin Williams is quotable as well, just because of him. Um, The Matrix, I think is extremely quotable, and like I wanted to actually learn some of the lines because they were so good in that movie, that first movie, and even in some of the others. But there's a movie I think I told you guys about called The Sphere, and it's from the writer of Jurassic Park, but it's like a stupid sci-fi movie. Well, it's stupid because it's not funny at all, but we've seen it. Me and my wife have seen it so many times that we've realized there's just these gargantuan plot holes in the script. It's just like who wrote that? like who wrote some of these lines? So we'll quote it every time we watch it and
Makes
make
it
fun of
better.
it. Yeah, it does. It really does. I remember the Austin Power movies used to be
Oh
really
yeah.
quotable, but now I feel like I've forgotten like I mean there's the whole moly,
Yeah. Mole, mole, mole,
that
mole.
part. Yeah, exactly. Or how about
The
no, Scott? I
fat
remember
bastard.
using that at work. Yeah, fat bastard. How about no?
Get in my
Yeah,
belly.
tons. Yeah, get my belly up. All those just that was definitely one. Those are ones I think of.
The Adam Sandler
What?
movies, Billy
Mm,
Madison, uh, Big Daddy, Happy Gilmore, all those. Billy Madison's another one of my top favorite movies, like up there with Goonies and Hot Rod, like something that I just like
mm.
is the easiest thing for me to watch and will still the jokes will still get me. Um, I've got like a lot of Adam Sandler comedies. Loved them. The early ones.
Bear, which one was it? Just the analogy of that book with the dog or whatever during was it Billy
Billy Madison.
Madison?
Billy Madison,
And
yeah, how he at the end, it's he's doing that test at
that,
the end, and he's
oh
like,
my
that
God,
in
dude,
no way had anything to do with. Yeah,
at the time when I heard that scene, like I didn't watch the movie, it was just that like one scene my dad showed me. It was the funniest thing I'd heard in my entire life. Like
It's so
it
good.
was it just like it like fades in and out of the scene, like that it took him so long to give the whole story. Everyone's just polarized. Oh my God, it cracks
Yeah.
me up, dude, to this day.
He like not only
Like
tells the story of this like little kid's book, but he butchers it.
and then and he misses the
It's
entire
so
point.
good.
But
Billy
yeah, that
Madison,
cracks me up. Yeah,
one of the best. You're not cool unless
yeah,
you
yeah.
pee your pants.
Oh yeah, yeah. I, I regret not seeing those as much as I need to have had.
It's all right. We'll blame your family. It's okay. You weren't allowed to watch them.
Yeah, just blame them. That's what I've been doing. um, I'm reading some of these comments. 8 Crazy Nights. I've never seen
I haven't either.
8 Crazy Nights.
It's pretty good.
Do y'all remember Flubber? Going back to Robin Williams. I remember I used to quote that movie all the time. It's taken me years to realize that most of the things Robin Williams said um, probably aren't that funny, but he could make anything funny. Yeah, he could say anything, but like you go to quote it and you're like, yeah, you're not
Not as funny when I
funny when
say
I
it.
say it. Yeah, Hook was hilarious, and it's funny as too, going back and seeing Hook, there's a bunch of jokes, like nearsighted gynecologist, like he calls one of the Lost Boys that at one point. I just had no idea what that meant back in the day, but I still thought it was funny. But then you're an adult and you're like, oh, that one got in there. Um, yeah. Hey, I got a question for you guys. What's and this is for the chat as well. What's a property or and anything that you would love to see a movie made out of? Like a game, a toy series, a book, anything like that, that even if it's a series like a Star Wars book or something they just haven't made a movie of, but you'd love to see it. Anything like that. I'll go ahead and throw out a couple because I think about this often when I hear like some of those rumors on the internet that, oh, this is getting made, and you're like, narf. Um, well, I'll start with one that I know is actually getting made. Is the Legend of Zelda movie is in pre-production, and it's going to be live action. And the director, yeah, I'm skeptical, but I'm hopeful. But the director said he wants to make it like a live action Studio Ghibli styled movie, and I don't know what that looks like, but it gives me some hope for the artistic vision. So that, but what I was going to say is I'd love to see, like we've talked about the Bloodborne video game, and there were rumors at one point about that getting a movie. I don't know how they do it, but like that, I'd love to see that world like in a movie. Um, they're doing a Horizon movie based on the Horizon Zero Dawn video games and stuff. So I'm really curious to see what that looks like. But that'd be one I'd wish to see. And then a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, are there any that y'all can think of? A Dead Space, by the way. That's one they might be making that I'd love to see a movie of.
I'm not sure how y'all
Uh,
feel about this, but like with the way the Disney movies have been made, like the way a lot of the animated movies are made, like I think it would be really cool to see Kingdom Hearts like adapted into like
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Kind of
yeah.
curious what
Yeah.
y'all think of that. Yeah.
Um, yeah, they just got to make something make sense whenever they do it. That's all I'm like. When I think of new Kingdom Hearts, I'm just like, oh God, how are they? What are they? Where is this going? Um, but yeah, I think that would be really cool. I liked all the Organization 13 members, so a movie that included all of them would be really, really cool. It's like the main protagonist or something. Could definitely see like the Castle Oblivion and how like the whole chain of memories, like that kind of storyline, more
Yeah.
elaborated on in a movie would be really cool.
Yeah. I think there's a lot they could do with it. Like my mind
Yeah.
just starts thinking, going, how could they do it? Because the story, big part of the story is visiting all those Disney worlds. But it would be really cool to see how it would like almost have to be a franchise, right? Or like a expensive Disney Plus series.
Or if they pulled
But
out of Disney.
Yeah,
and took all
exactly.
their
That's
Square
what
Enix
that's what.
characters and said, "This is Sora's new
Yeah,
adventure with his long lost Final
yeah, something
Fantasy
like
friends."
that. Yeah, I think there's things they could do like that. I don't know. For me, that there would have to be some level of dizziness in it. That's a big part
It's
of it
gonna
for
have Donald
me.
and
And I know it
Goofy.
is for you. Yeah, like at least something like that. But I almost think they could do the opposite that they did with the first Kingdom Hearts game. Instead of having heavy Disney, a couple Final Fantasy, do heavy, fantasy universe doesn't necessarily have to be Final Fantasy, but that Kingdom Hearts verse with the organization, but then kind of speckle in Winnie the Pooh here, and they pick them up on their journey for whatever reason and stuff. So yeah, there's a ton of cool stuff. I would love to see that. I feel like it's like so impossible that it could happen. But I also thought that about them adding Star Wars and stuff to Kingdom Hearts, and now it seems like that's going to be a likely thing. So I would love it. I would love to see them experiment with that.
Mhm.
Outside of
The
that, like
chat said,
go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say outside of
Oh, no.
that, like the one thing, and they're already working on it, but like I've always wanted to see a Fallout movie, and
Mm,
but now that
So
the TV show is like close to coming out now, and everything I've seen so far, it's looked good. So
I want a BioShock movie.
yeah.
I think it could be. I think they could nail that a good story within Rapture in an hour and a half to 2 hours. I think it would be so cool. Um, I
Hmm.
don't know if I would want to see a functioning Rapture or a dysfunctional Rapture, but
Yes,
I would be fine
both.
with whatever I got there. I'd be fine with it. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and then as far as Star Wars, I mean, it's probably happening, but like, there's this like as far as something that's not happened yet, but could happen. Um, they're leaning toward where everything's kind of heading towards now with the next movie, one of the next movies. It'd be really cool to see Heir to the Empire, which is like the first popularized novel, Star Wars novel, like
Mm,
highly popular novel, that introduced Grand Admiral Thrawn. I would just like to see a. I don't want to see like a exact retelling of the same story, but I would like to see like how they can make that story fit into a movie, and do like a Heir to the Empire movie. I would be over the moon about that. Um, yeah, I think
yeah.
I've
What about
I've got
a,
to read it.
what's
I
that?
was gonna say Assassin's Creed because I want to see a good Assassin's Creed movie, but then I was gonna ask if you guys if y'all saw the last one
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
the action animus.
Did you see it, Brandon?
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
What do you think?
I don't have much good to say about it.
I know, but it's something I feel like could be well done if they just didn't try to like overdo it. I don't know. They kept it more just a compact story, like doing like Ezio's story or something in a movie would be cool. A trilogy of movies. Let's just do that as movies rather than like try and add in a new character and I don't know, do extra stuff, do new stuff. But I feel like that's a property that would be cool to see as a movie if they did it and it like, honored the games more. Because I went and saw the last
Hmm.
one and I went and saw it in theaters by myself one day in between like had meetings on Tuesdays at work in Chattanooga and had like 4 hours to kill in between my meeting and my shift. So I would just go see like a matinee. And I remember going and seeing that and halfway through it just not being able to look over at anybody and be like, what the fuck is going on? Like I was in that theater by myself.
Somebody in the
Yeah.
comments, Miss Killigan said Borderlands would be a cool action movie, and they're already working on that.
There and it's got a huge cast, like a
Yeah,
Hmm.
huge cast. Jack Black,
yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis,
I'm kind of curious though,
Kevin Hart.
like, cause it is gonna have Jack Black and Kevin Hart, and like Jack
Mhm.
Black's one of my absolute favorites, but like curious how much of this is going to be like another Jumanji movie. And those weren't bad, but there's
I,
definitely a tone where like if they're not careful, it could be too
I think they did
similar.
great with Bowser with him. I thought it was
Yeah.
gonna be overdone with Bowser. I was worried about it because I didn't watch the Mario movie until like a week ago. It's the first
Mm.
I saw it.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking like Jack, I mean, I love Jack Black, but whenever he's getting his hands in so many different pots, it's like, okay, how saturated are we gonna make Jack Black? Putting him in every video game, like he's gonna be in the Minecraft movie that they're apparently doing. Like, but him being Claptrap, I feel like there's, you know, enough that they can do with his voice to modify it to where he doesn't,
Yeah.
as long as it just doesn't sound like Claptrap being acting as Jack Black, I'm fine.
That's
And
probably what it's
Kevin
going to be.
Hart is a strange choice for Roland to me too.
Yeah.
That doesn't match up in my book, but like I'll give it a shot. I love Borderlands, so
But
and
I've
the
never gotten
art
too much
style
into
could be
them.
so cool. Like
Hmm.
if they lean into like how it's so cell shaded and stuff with the movie, and it's just like a, you know, they could create a like a masterpiece movie with like how if they kind of matched up with how the game's animated too somehow and made it
Hmm.
live action, didn't make it look overly CG.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Art style wise, there's potential there for it to really stand out. I
Hmm.
haven't heard if they're going to go with any certain style, but it could definitely stand out in the same way that like Sin City or something like that did. Um, Obviously the Borderlands wouldn't be black and white, but just how like I guess it stands out culturally of something live action mixed with like some kind of cell shading would be pretty cool. Yeah, like some like a Cold Slippy said, like a rotoscope with a scanner darkly. I think
Yeah.
Hmm.
something along those lines could be really cool.
Yeah. What would you guys think of and I heard that the same studio that did the Mario movie was pitching to Nintendo for this, but they were wanting to do a Smash Brothers movie.
Let's go.
Would
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I I don't know how you would do the proper angle on that. Do you guys remember the Subspace Emissary on Brawl? Did you ever play that? That was the story mode with all the cutscenes
Yeah.
and stuff.
No,
Oh
I
well,
didn't play Brawl
if you
as
haven't
much.
played it, you just need to go watch. Oh, just watch the cutscenes because it's like this huge, almost feels like Kingdom Hearts the way the characters are colliding into each other through these worlds. But anyway, I would love to see them try to do that. I don't know how, but it would kind of be a good way to set up if they're gonna do a bunch of Nintendo movies. And by the way, what did you think of the Mario movie? I liked it.
I thought it was
I
good.
I
liked it
didn't
a
like
lot.
some of the things, but yeah, I liked it a lot too.
Yeah, well, Brandon, I think when we were hanging out last night, mentioned that, or one of you guys did. The main thing that stood out to me is like I just didn't like a lot of the music that was in it that just didn't match a Nintendo theme to me. Like the Bowser song was fun, you know, as an original or whatever, but any of the licensed songs that were in it that like Kanan pointed out, like, oh, this is the song that was in uh the other
Super
movie
fan,
that Chris Pratt was
whatever.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was in
yeah.
whatever else, but it was what is the superhero? He's Star Lord.
Oh,
Chris Pratt,
Guardians. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians. Wasn't there a Guardians of the Galaxy song in it? It's like a little too on the
Probably.
nose. Um,
probably.
like, but yeah, like other than that, I loved all the call outs. Like if you were a Mario, you didn't have to be a Mario fan to enjoy it, but if you were a Mario fan and you've played the different properties of Mario, Luigi's Mansion is one of my favorites, and there's a whole
Hmm.
nod to that.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole
Oh,
thing,
I,
like the I loved Peach not being the damsel and being the one that's helping Mario learn how and just creating a canonness to like Mario's world. Like he's a plumber that entered this world. Peach is like a princess of the world. Like just giving like the Toads like and like a home world, and you don't know how she got there. I thought there was gonna be more to come out of like her like being like maybe someone that was taken away from her family and came into this world. But it was nice to add a story to Mario and it'd be like, this is cool. This is cool. They did well with it. I thought all the actors, like all the voices were great. How they included the original voice actor and like the commercial they do in the beginning to kind of set the Mario tone, and then how
Mhm.
they refer to it like they're just like overacting their accents and stuff. And but their
Mhm.
voices sound close enough to the accent to where it's like, yeah, I could totally see Charlie Day like, exaggerating and doing a super Italian accent. But like the attention to detail and the thought behind a lot of it from what I saw, I really enjoyed. Thought it was pretty thorough. Like as far as if you're a Mario fan, this is you got to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming out of it, like the thing I wanted most was a Luigi's Mansion movie with like Boo is like the main villain or something.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I really liked it. Like, I mean, like you said, the only problem I had was the soundtrack. Not necessarily that the songs were bad. It was just way overused. And
Dubstep Mario music. Why not just do
and
that? Why not just throw some techno in there?
what they did with like the original score with
Mhm.
what songs they did
Yeah.
use was really good. And I'm like, why didn't they do more of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that the tracks that were in there that were fully orchestrated and stuff, I was like euphoric over hearing that stuff. But yeah, I hope they don't do that again with any of the other movies. But going back to, yeah, Luigi's Mansion movie would be awesome. Man, did they have the theme in there, by the way, with that part where it showed the ghostly trees? I don't remember
I
hearing
can't
it,
remember.
but
I
God,
didn't remember
that's
hearing
one of
it,
the
but
most
it started out like one of the games. Like it was the intro to one
uh
of the Luigi's Mansion
I
games.
love it. Well,
It was
we're gonna have to
great.
do a whole podcast on Luigi's Mansion at some point because God, I love that game. We used to have the GameCube episode at one point.
Yeah.
But you guys can show off your game pads. But I would love to see really they alluded to there being this whole galaxy or a whole universe or something of places out there. I think Peach says in the Mario movie at some point. I would love to see them go like down the galaxy path and stuff, but almost in a way it almost have to be like the Goblet of Fire of Mario movies in the sense of it mainly be all about the visuals. I don't know what special story you can necessarily tell with it going all galaxy, but I'd love to see Mario flying around planets and the way you do in the game and stuff like that. But yeah, now they're doing a second one. I really enjoyed it though a lot, and I was really skeptical, but I actually liked at first when they had Mario not like mushrooms. I was all
Oh,
like for a moment was like, what? And then I thought, you it never, playing the games, you really don't know if he's enjoying it, right? It might be an excruciatingly painful experience. So I kind of thought it was pretty brave of them to go
that
that
whole
direction.
montage making him eat mushrooms over and over and over was just pretty genius after like establishing that he doesn't like mushrooms. It's so good.
Yeah. The chat said
I'm interested
Luigi's
in that
Mansion
Smash movie
gameplay.
though. Oh
Who,
yeah.
okay, so like while we're on that topic, which of the Smash universe, right? The Smash roster, who would you want to see? Who would you be most excited to see in that movie? And who would, on that same token, would you be excited if they got their own
I'm
movie? I'll go ahead and say for me, probably be Metroid, and I'll come back to that. But what about you, Brandon?
that that'd be a cool like movie on its own for Metroid too. But for Smash, like I'm a NES main, and I would like to see some
Oh
Earthbound love.
man, yeah, dude, that's a
Uh,
good one.
um, I usually run Link. It'd be, I mean,
Which
Toon
one?
Link.
I was gonna say Toon Link's the go-to
Yeah,
for me.
Toon Link, or I liked Pokemon Trainer in uh, the one for Switch a lot. It's fun to be able to switch between the three starters. Um, I don't know who. I would just be more excited to see it. Like, I mean, if they did the full roster as it is now, it'd be wild. But like, if they did like more of a contained roster, if they did Melee's roster, and start
Hmm.
it and let the cast grow as the movie goes on somehow. But
Hmm.
starting small, and I don't even know how they would make a movie out of it. Like, what's the in between rounds like? Like what's the story there? But
Yeah.
either way, I'm game for seeing what they did with the Mario movie and like what they're capable of doing nowadays. It would just be I know it would be exciting to see.
Well, I mean, we've
That's where I feel like a video game adaptation really, it can't go too wrong unless they just fill it with a bunch of music that doesn't make sense, and like if it,
Story that we
it
don't care about or something. Yeah.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they could add a story to that, but it still could be really cool. Just to,
uh,
it's a lot of fighting too, so I feel like it's just a fairly violent movie already.
yeah. I mean, if
Hey, I'm
it's
down
in
for it.
connected or if it's in the same
You got
universe or
Marth over
something,
here just
then
charging up.
if it's
What
connected or
were
in
you
the
saying,
same
Brandon?
if it's connected or in the same universe as the Mario movie, then we've kind of already seen what something similar that they would do. I mean, with the whole Donkey Kong sequence. Um,
Oh, that part of the movie was wonderful too, man. The Donkey Kong song coming in, that DK Donkey
Hmm.
Kong. That was like, and then his whole world. That was really. I like how it just gave the the Donkey Kong fans, Donkey Kong Country fans, a little love there for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of things they can do with it. I think,
Yeah, I'm
yeah, like I
excited
said,
for that realm
Samus.
stuff.
Yeah, I hope I hope they do it, and I hope they manage it as well as they did. Um, like with Marvel when all that went on for the first 20 movies or so. But it's hard to just control it when those get so big. But the universes get so big, that is. I think the other thing that makes following big series like that challenging is when they throw in the TV shows, and it's like, listen, unless your only hobby is following that lore, it's like, who's got that much time to watch the 7 different TV series on top of the movies and know what's going on, especially when not all of them are that good. Not many
yeah.
of them are really that good.
Well,
So
as far as Marvel goes, like the WandaVision and the first season of Loki was really good. I haven't seen the second season yet, but like I think it definitely would have been better off if they cut that down into like one movie. Like would have been
That's the case with
just
a
fine.
lot of those nowadays. All those Disney Plus series that like, not all of them. Some of them definitely need their time to pan out, but I've noticed that with even Star Wars, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, probably would have been better paced as a movie rather than stretched out to be a show.
Yeah.
Just some of that. But I watched a bit of WandaVision too, and I did enjoy what I saw of it. I know it's pretty well accepted too by a lot of people, but
I really
kind of
liked
loses its
WandaVision.
steam whenever it seems like a chore to watch so many of those shows, especially once they start stacking up.
It's just, and it's not even necessarily that they're any of them are even bad. It's just that if you do get
Yeah.
behind, it just feels like you're obligated to go if you want to see the next Avengers, if we ever get it, which I believe we will, of course. But um, yeah, it just feels like work to go back and watch 3 different series with sometimes multiple seasons. So yeah, I,
But
I'll call out one real quick thing I'm looking forward to is they're doing a Ghost of Tsushima movie. I don't know if y'all played the game on PlayStation, but it's going to be directed by the director of John Wick. Um, so I'm pretty psyched to see what that looks like. I love that game, by the way.
it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Earlier in the chat, we got a question. Let me see what it was. For Miss Killigan, it was like favorite anime movie. I'm not sure how many I know of. I have one in mind, but do you guys have one you can think of by any
Animated
chance?
movies in general or anime
I think
movie?
anime. Yeah, anime. It said anime, so I'm gonna assume that it was specific to
Pokemon the
that.
first movie count?
Oh,
Of
yeah, I
course.
think it does.
That's
Yeah.
that's also a theater moment that's like I should have called out earlier, but I remember
Oh,
going
tell me
and
about
seeing
it.
Pokemon the first movie. Uh,
That had to be
I
heavenly.
mean, yeah, but it was also one of those sad, traumatizing things where you thought Ash died.
Yeah.
You know, in
That
the
was
most
some heavy
brutal,
stuff.
heartbreaking scene. Brother, my brother, dude.
I'm gonna cry
It's gonna.
now.
I know. um, that or, I mean, I really, really enjoyed um the newest Dragon Ball movie. Um, Superhero. That was a lot of fun. Went and saw it twice. Went and saw it with Brandon.
Yeah, that was the
Uh,
first anime I've seen in theaters, and it was really good.
it was a little jarring at first with the new animation style, but once it got into the plot, it was awesome. And just, you know, I'll take fan service in that vein. It's fine. So I enjoyed it a lot.
That one was special for me, anyways. Like Piccolo being my favorite character, and
Yeah.
so it was very apropos to like for that to be the first one I saw in theaters. Um, but yeah, I mean, I
Broly was
it's
great too. Also saw it in theaters. That was,
yeah,
I
it's pretty
mean,
good.
both of those kind of deserve the.
But like outside of that, probably I mean it's hard to go wrong with any of the Ghibli movies, but
Hmm.
like between Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away, like those are two of my favorites.
Love all the Ghibli movies. Those are, I don't think there's a bad one out of the bunch.
No, there's really not.
Um, I think my favorite though is probably, have y'all, is called Your Name.
Haven't heard of it.
Um, I think y'all would recognize it if you saw it. It's from the same director and team as like they did Weathering with You, and they did one recently called Suzumi. But I had we were lucky to see it because I had just like looked up. This was years ago when it came out in theaters in America, and I just looked up randomly showtimes one weekend, and there was really limited showtimes like there usually are when the anime movies that aren't Studio Ghibli play, and there was a showtime that night, so I was just like bought tickets, and me and Brandy and the kids went and saw it, and I didn't tell them what it was. I was like, hey, and so like we literally get sat down, and I was like, so this is an anime movie, and I heard it was clean and really good. So we ended up seeing it, and it was awesome. We've got it. And I'll let you guys borrow it, but it's excellent. It's super good, and the animation's up there with Studio Ghibli. It's really, really great. So that's probably my favorite. That and Akira.
I've
Um,
got to go back and watch that.
ah, Akira's. Have you seen Akira, Barrett?
No, but I'm aware of it. That's like the super exaggerated world breaking like
Yeah,
giant.
it's cyberpunk.
Oh, okay, never mind. Man, what am I thinking
You
of?
would recognize it. It's that shot you always see of the dude like doing the slide on the red cyberpunk bike sideways. If you know what I'm talking about, but that's a great one. I don't I don't know if I love it as much as most people do, but the animation is still some of the best animation I've ever seen. It's got some cool stuff in it. It's definitely not for kids. It's got a lot of rough stuff in it, but it's great.
I should call it. I mean, we're going to see Advent Children on Thursday, and
Yeah,
I mean that's a pretty cool one.
that is a good one. I'm
Speaking,
excited to see that again. Yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm excited to see it for the first time. But I was gonna
Fun
say,
fact.
go ahead.
I'll just real quick, I would say the version we're seeing is the ultimate version or whatever. I think I mentioned that previously, but
Got extra stuff.
it has extra stuff, but it also has, this is funny, it has battle damage. I was reading up on it again. So it's so funny. So when you think of battle damage, I don't know about y'all, but I think of the action figures at the store. And they used to advertise it has battle damage, and there would be scratches and cuts and stuff and blood. And they would advertise it. I don't I remember that. But anyway, so I thought it was funny when I read that, but apparently the original version of Advent Children didn't have any or much blood or cuts or anything. But when they went the ultimate, they added in more damage in the animation to the characters. I don't know if it was an effort to make it cleaner for a younger audience or what, but anyway, I just thought of that. So I don't know if I've seen it since they added that or not, but anyway, it's almost like a George Lucas level thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm pumped for that. Sorry, Brandon. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, man.
No, I was just gonna say, while we were talking about the Ghibli movies earlier, have either, well, I don't even know if it's the English version's out yet, but have y'all watched Boy and the Heron yet?
Hmm.
I have
The
not.
Like the English voice cast is like just by looking at it stacked, and
Yeah, I saw it. I know it's like star-studded
yeah,
cast that was in that, but yeah.
I actually
With
really wanted
Studio
to see that
Ghibli,
in English.
I'm familiar with a lot of them. I think um, the only one that I know I'm familiar with the most is Kiki's Delivery Service. I've seen Spirited Away. Um, I don't know. Some of them, like, I don't know. I've really tried to watch them, and I enjoy the animation style, but nothing's really like taken me with them. I would definitely respect the legacy of the Studio Ghibli series, but I don't know. With that, it's one of those things. I worked at Hot Topic for long enough to like be more familiar with a lot of those properties than I cared to like dive into, you know. Um, but Kiki's Delivery Service, I remember catching it on TV. I don't remember what channel it would have been on, but as a kid, and I loved it. I thought it was fun, a fun story. Do you mind if I've got another question that might kind of change the tone for a second, if y'all are good to
Yeah,
move on to something else.
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, definitely.
Um, so Brandon, you mentioned earlier horror movies. You're really into like
Mm,
Nightmare on Elm Street growing up. For me, that was one of the first horror movies I ever watched. And apparently, as a kid, like I was like 4 or 5 years old whenever like I watched it by myself, and my parents didn't know I watched it until after the fact. And like I came out of our room saying like 1, 2, Freddy's coming for me. It like kind of freaked them out. They didn't realize I watched it. But I do remember like watching a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies whenever I was a kid, like up to Freddy versus Jason and a lot of those. So I was gonna ask like horror movies. Um, which are there any from like I mean, it could be recent years or older that like ones you like and ones that like truly get to you and bother you. You can't watch it. Um,
mm,
I'll start and say ones that I loved growing up that were a lot of fun. I loved the Ring movies. Those were um, I guess palatable whenever I was younger because I liked the paranormal kind of stuff. I loved the Paranormal Activity movies. Um, as far as movies that like I couldn't stand that like legitimately scared me, The Grudge was one of the scariest movies of all time to me.
mm.
I remember just the face up in the corner making the fucking
Dude,
sound and just say that's nightmare fuel. And
yeah, that was bad.
now way she walks down the stairs like spider crawls on her back, like all like glitchy and stuff. It was just ugh, so so freaky. Um, I remember being like severely freaked out by the Blair Witch Project because my stepdad convinced me that it was real. For years, I believed that it was a legitimate like documentary that like, why is no one looking into this? Uh, so, and Jeepers Creepers, that one, I remember really wanting to like it, but it just making me so sick to my stomach, like legitimately sick. Um, so yeah, and I was terrified of Jason Voorhees growing up, so I never, ever liked the Friday the 13th movies because I'd had one of those nightmare dreams where he's chasing me through the house and no one would help me. But I like ran past my parents and into their bedroom and locked the door in my dream, and like they just stood there and watched, and while Jason chased me down, murdering me in my dream. So like I never really messed with the Jason Voorhees movies either. But I always liked Freddy because, like you were saying earlier, Brandon, there was like a humor aspect to it. Um, so it could be kind of funny, but also terrifying.
Yeah, definitely like the comedy aspect of it stood out, but it was also one of those things. I think I don't know. I think I really think the concept of it was the coolest out of all the other like slasher films. Um, Cause I mean, all the other ones like with Friday the 13th and Halloween and stuff like, even though there was like some supernatural elements to it, like it was just those were guys that were in the living world, whereas Nightmare on Elm Street, it's like he could only get to you when you go to sleep, and it's like sleep's like one of those things that everybody needs. Like it's hard to go without, and
It's such a vulnerable thing.
yeah. So that was, I mean, that was probably the biggest one to me. But also I've also always really liked all like the Universal monster movies and like older Godzilla and King Kong. Um, like like a lot of the black and white stuff. Um, I don't know. There was just something about that era with that stuff. All of its practical effects because there wasn't much CGI at all at that time. But I don't know. It just something around that time, like it. I don't know. It felt more authentic, where it's like, okay, these were just regular people that just so happened to be acting as a job. Where like now it's like a whole lifestyle with the way actors live and stuff, and where there's a whole you know societal hierarchy. But like a lot of the stuff from back then, it's like it just seemed like people that work regular 9 to 5 jobs that just started acting. Um,
Hmm.
but
It's like nowadays you see a familiar face in a movie like that, kind of takes you out of it
yeah,
a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely a meta to some of it. Um,
Hmm.
but like even to like TV series and stuff, with like the Twilight Zone, like I could watch that. There for a while, my wife and I we watch it going to bed every night for a few months straight, and so it's almost like older stuff like that. It's almost like a comfort viewing. Um,
Mm.
but it's really hard for me to get into a lot of newer horror movies. I know growing up, it was like a lot of stuff like Final Destination and like
Yeah.
you said, Freddy versus
That's a
Shock
Jason.
good one.
factor.
Um, so and those and movies similar, like I could still watch it today, but like a lot of the better horror movies that are coming out now are definitely more psychological and
Mhm.
but to a point where like it's too much for me. Um, I've watched several throughout the year, whether that be The Conjuring. Um, I think like the VHS movies. Sinister was like a real good one for me because like it included like a lot of found footage, like within the story where like this guy's finding like these tapes around the house. That was
Mhm.
always like that always like freaked me out. But last year when we watched Midsummer, like that just kind of like flipped a switch like on horror movies for me. Like I just where I don't even want to anymore. Like it has to be something like really intriguing to get me to want to watch something. Um, just because I like with at least with that movie, like it lived with me for like 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, where like I was watching YouTube videos and analyzing every scene and what things meant and how it was portrayed and but yeah, it just I don't know that definitely changed how I viewed horror movies going forward.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, for me, my favorites, Insidious is the first thing that comes to mind, particularly the first movie. I remember going and seeing it with my wife when it came out and just not being prepared for it's not dude, what's funny is I watched it not too long back and I was like, this isn't as scary as I remember at the time, but at the time it was the scariest movie I think I'd ever seen. That probably had a
When you
lot
know
to
what
do
to
with it.
expect, it like
Yeah,
especially in
that's
a movie like that, you know what to expect, and you see the little things. You're like, okay, I see it coming now.
well, and I'll circle back to
That
this,
was a
but I
great
think
movie.
a part of it's probably due to Hereditary and Midsummer, which I'll Brandon was saying, I'll come back to that. But yeah, Insidious, which in circling back, the music in Insidious, I love. Like it is so freaking nerve shattering. That's the first thing they hit you with is that Insidious logo and just those violins. Just
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I don't know. It was the first movie where I was like I don't want to be as scared as I am right now. And they built tension really well. So yeah, Insidious, and so I've always appreciated that series. The Alien movies, the Prometheus movie, I love those. I think those mix like sci-fi, horror, and just mystery like really well. And they always look great. The monsters are always awesome and stuff. The acting is always great. So I really love Prometheus. That's probably less of a horror movie than Alien. Um, the Ring, I was going to agree with you, Barrett. That face, man. Yeah,
The
I
closet,
just
the
it's
the
when the
dead.
head like goes back like this and she's
Yeah,
looking in the face. My brain broke like
yeah.
whenever I saw that part. And
But is it rewired by Scary Movie though? I think it's Scary Movie 3 where they're
no,
making fun
see,
of it.
see,
Because
maybe
that rewired my brain to make it be like, okay, it's kind of funny.
I didn't. So I never. I don't. I've seen many of the scary movies, which may or may not be a good thing. So no, it hasn't rewired it because I've never seen whatever parody they did on it.
Okay,
Um,
well,
So that
those
messed
were
me up
great.
for like couple weeks, and I just
Hmm.
yeah was scared to even like understand what happened to that character in that shot. But it was so it just comes out of nowhere too. Is I got to give them
Yeah,
kudos. Is they're just like referencing it and then they show it, and it's like no, don't do that. There was no build up at, and it wasn't even a jump scare. It was, but it wasn't with loud noise. You know what I
right.
mean? So I thought that was really well done, but also messed me up. The Shining is weird because that movie doesn't like not there's no jump scare that I recall in The Shining, but like it's just the energy, the atmosphere of the movie, which that's my favorite thing about horror movies or anything scary is just the atmosphere, feeling immersed and then feeling like something's not right and it's uncomfortable, but you know that the fact is you're safe at home, so you get to enjoy it. At least that's how a good scary movie makes me feel. But yeah, The Shining and Doctor Sleep, the sequel that came out years later, Doctor Sleep was actually better, I thought, than The Shining, which was crazy, but it's a good one. My favorite horror movie is Event Horizon, and I've told you guys about this before, but that's the one that inspired Dead Space and it's got the main actor from Jurassic Park. It's got Lawrence Fishburne, and it's super stupid, but it's the most atmospheric movie with like the coolest set design. Plus, it's science fiction and horror. I'm a sucker for
Mhm.
that because I love sci-fi. So that's one I really hope y'all see eventually. It's just got some really graphic, nasty stuff at certain points that I'm immune to now. But a couple more. There's one that I think you guys would really like, and it's called Resolution. And it's like it's probably the most indie of the movies I've referenced, but it's about this guy who decides he's gonna get his like crackhead friend clean. So he like goes out to where he's at and like chains him to the floor essentially, and he's like, "We're gonna get you clean, buddy." And then it turns out they're on an Indian reservation, and it just gets weirder and weirder, and then you're left with a bunch of questions about what it all meant. And it's
I
awesome.
love that.
It builds the weirdest energy though, and just like kind of like there's a moment in the movie, and I won't say what happens, but where one character's like looks around really panicked and scared, and he's like, "What's going on, man? What's going on? Like, what's happening right now?" And it gave me goosebumps, and it's so good. And I was watching it going like, "This is really uncomfortable," but not in a way that was horrific. Like you were scared, but you didn't know why. It was just something really bizarre was happening, and that's like really influenced me like ever since, like when I think about writing and stuff like that, like what makes for like really interesting writing and stuff is like when there's that mystery of going like what is happening here, like this is some weird nonsense. So anyway, that's one of my favorites. um and then As Above So Below, have y'all seen that?
I don't think so.
I
That's
Austin
okay.
and Noah both tried to get me to watch that, and I don't.
It's great.
I didn't give in. I need to see
Yeah,
it though. I
that's
know I've
great.
heard great
Yeah,
things about it.
it's a lot of fun too. Yeah, it's like that found footage, kind of like Blair Witch. But I thought it was a lot of fun, even though it's freaky, and but it's really good. But two, yeah, two that I think of that I just can't watch. Well, any of that Saw torture porn stuff,
Yeah.
I can't do that. The human centipede stuff,
I like the
I can't
first
touch
Saw.
that. Yeah, the first Saw, yeah,
Yeah,
I just when I got the Saw 4 or 5, and it was just gratuitous.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Hostel.
Oh God, hostile. Yeah,
Yeah.
so those bothered me really bad, like to the
Yeah.
point of where I couldn't.
Overly
Yeah, I stopped.
bloody, just for the sake of, yeah, those. I'm in the same boat with those. Like I couldn't. I would watch like the first Saw and be like, yeah, and I'll never have to watch another one of those again. 'Cause-
Mm. Oh, and funny. Yeah, so I completely agree with you. I don't like when the core of the movie is people suffering. Like that can be something that happens that
Mhm.
the people go through, but when it's like just like, hey, let's like dwell on just anguish, I can't. That bothers me a lot. But Brandy in the comments mentioned The Thing. So this is gonna sound contradictory to what I just said, but we saw the remake of The Thing, and when it came out theaters, and we loved it. But there are some transformations and stuff that happen. I don't know if y'all have seen the remake, where I remember one
No.
point I just looked over at her and I said, "Well, that was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life." And she's like, "Yeah." And then we walked out of it. We to this day we watched it a couple more, probably a dozen more times. But it's so good and freaky. But I just remember that moment in that movie and just being like, "Good God, that is the worst thing that could possibly happen to you." But because it was an alien doing it, it kind of didn't bother me as bad. But anyway, yeah, that movie was crazy. But yeah, the ones I can't do where I don't think I could watch them again is Hereditary and Midsummer, because they were just too realistic. I think I realized watching those movies that, oh, this is like I'm genuinely scared. I don't want to be genuinely scared.
Yeah.
like I just want to be kind of scared, and maybe think wondering if I should be scared. But I watched those and they just, yeah. I mean, kudos to them for making these movies so like
They,
profoundly disturbing.
yeah, they achieve that for sure. Just
I think what it was though
freaking
with
the
those
whole world
movies,
out.
yeah, what it is how the characters respond to what's happening is just too like well done. I'm not even gonna say it's necessarily realistic because I don't even know if it would be, but it's too like it feels too real to where it feels like it's happening to you as you watch it. So but that being said, the quality of those movies is excellent. I just can't. Yeah, Midsummer left me, yeah, just shocked,
Yeah,
I guess.
that's the one that gets me. Like with that movie, it's just like cinematography, cinematography, and everything of it's like really good.
Hmm.
Like the story
Yeah,
itself's really good, and I think that's what kind of gets me too. Is like how real that one could possibly be. Like I wouldn't be surprised
yeah,
if stuff like that happens like
exactly,
in
dude.
real life all the time. And just that like that the panic of it of just the nature of like okay these people are going out to visit this local festival, what they think is the local
Hmm.
festival, and then they're trapped in this foreign country, like no way to contact anybody, and it's just like the sheer panic if something like that were to happen, like you really don't have much of a way out either. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
Reminds me of that movie Deliverance, if you've ever seen it, where they go on
yeah,
that
yeah, for
that
sure.
that that freaked me out in the same way. I thought
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
never want to watch that again
yeah,
because that's there's nothing impossible about that.
That's
Matter of
local,
fact,
baby.
yeah, that's what I was saying. Matter of fact, it might even be likely that that could have happened.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's that kind of thing. But yeah, it goes back to your point, Brandon. It's like, yeah, how many like festivals or corn mazes do you go to where it's just like you don't want to think about you don't want to think about it. So yeah.
yeah,
Did have either of you one that I wanted to mention that like left me like just jaw drop? Did y'all ever see The Mist?
yeah. I
Um,
really like that movie, and
I remember sitting through the credits like this,
oh yeah,
like I could not move for like 20 minutes. I just had to process. Like,
Wait, what
oh
movie?
my
I
God,
got distracted.
The Mist.
The Mist. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
get
That's
all
a good call out.
locked up in the convenience store and
But
they all start going crazy.
just the way it ends though, just like was
Just the way it ends. Exactly, dude.
totally
They
out of
were
the
that
blue.
fucking close. And it
Uh,
just, I remember being like, oh my God. Like, just talk about something just leaving you hopeless. That was, I remember that movie just leaving me with a hole. Like,
and
ugh.
I watched that movie before I had kids, and like now having
Yeah,
kids, like
same.
I couldn't
I couldn't
imagine.
think about watching it now. Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah. I had the benefit of reading the ending of that movie beforehand because I knew it was going to be a long time before I saw it. So, reading the ending, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty grim." But I had that eased me into it. So when I saw it, I was just kind of like, "Oh, here comes that part." Um,
Okay. Yeah,
but
that's,
overall, I can watch that movie for some reason because of that, and just be like, "Oh yeah, here comes that crappy ending." You know. Um,
but when you don't expect it, it's like a,
oh, I can't imagine. It's got to be
like,
horrible.
that
Yeah,
one
that
fucked,
sucks
that
for
one
you
fucked me
guys.
up definitely for a while.
That's good. I can't
Hey,
imagine. I
I'm glad
really
that you
can't.
spoiled that for yourself though, because I didn't like what
Me
that did
too.
to me, to be honest. I hated the way I felt after I finished that movie. Like, but I mean, I got to give it credit for doing that, I guess. Like, it's one
Yeah.
that I won't forget that movie because of that. Uh,
Did y'all see
yeah.
1408?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's
No.
another Stephen King one. That's one I forgot to mention. That's one of my favorite movies too. But the dude in a hotel room for an hour and 45 minutes, and it's like The Shining compressed into one room with one person, and it's freaking awesome.
Oh God.
But yeah, The
Uh,
Mist was rough.
l- like you guys were talking about, like with Midsummer and Hereditary, kind of like spoiling the fun for all the other horror movies that could come out. Like that's what I think I hit my end with horror movies whenever Human Centipede 2, 1 and 2 were a thing, and having to like watching those with a friend of mine just to like just for the shock factor. And I don't know, that was definitely the last time I wanted to do that. Like, I don't want to watch anything that like intentionally is just going to make me uncomfortable and make me live in that. Like, I'm good. Anything that's also like with what I've heard about Midsummer, anything that's also just gonna fuck my head up too. Be like, this could be totally possible. I don't need that in my life at all. I don't need any any of that.
Kind of on the same topic though, like if I can change it at this point,
Yeah.
you don't mind.
Oh yeah.
By that same token, is there movies you think of, and maybe you've already mentioned them, but are there movies you think of that had like the opposite effect on you, right? That fucked you up in a good way or made you walk away with just feeling great or very positively emotional or touched in some way? I can think of a couple off the top of my head. Um, but those I would consider a lot of those my favorite movies, right? But there's one like one of my all-time favorite movies is Contact, and it's this movie about very very realistically done, as if we get this signal from outer space. And maybe y'all have seen it, maybe you haven't, but the end of it is, well, I won't spoil the ending, but I'll say that there's this there's this moment when this character walks away from this really profound experience, but with no proof that it happened at all. And it kind of like teaches this concept of faith and what the value of that could be. And it just like to this day profoundly like has an effect on me and makes me really emotional when I see that movie. But to me, it's a beautiful movie. Um, but yeah, do y'all have any?
But I'm gonna take Bryson's answer. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Definitely like for, I mean, not being like I don't really go out of my way to watch a lot of movies nowadays, and that one I wish that I had watched it sooner just because it was so good. Like,
Mhm.
I definitely like went into it not seeing a trailer that didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was chaotic, seemed kind of all over the place, but seemed fun. And it's crazy that they brought all that whole idea together the way that they did and told that story. It was that one definitely, like, I'm still riding the high. It was a really really good
Right.
movie.
Any thoughts, Brandon? Are you still thinking of them?
Yeah, I'm still thinking. Yeah.
Another one that I think Brandy mentioned in the chat earlier was What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams in it. And it's
Mm.
like that movie is another where I think it's one of the most like beautiful renditions of like the afterlife that's ever been portrayed. Like that gets me messed up, and every time I watch it, it gets me emotional. And that's such, I guess, an underlying feeling of hope, that you're left with, and optimism. Um, I think that those are that movie's awesome. And then visually, it's amazing. The music's awesome and carries it, and super inspiring and super artistic. Where it's like, God, no wonder it's not an easy movie to just pick up and watch if you're not ready to go into like this really heavy subject matter where this dude loses his whole family and then dies himself and stuff. But yeah, that's an awesome one. But also like Lord of the Rings. I think the end of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is just the most like satisfying,
We did
positive,
it.
warm. Oh yeah, just the warmest feeling. I think it comes down to like good triumphing over evil, essentially, and
Hmm.
then hey, you just get to live a peaceful life. You earned it, and you get to see that
Yeah.
happen with all those characters. Yeah, that's like it. I think that's why it's worth watching the whole trilogy repeatedly, because you're gonna feel good by the end of it and
That
have a
is
roller coaster.
the most, if I want to feel good, like at night,
Mhm.
if we don't know what to put on, I feel like we've put on Lord of the Rings like so many times. Just like, I don't know. I'll never forget like watching Lord of the Rings the first time stoned and being
Mm.
like, I've been on this adventure many times, but I've never been as excited for it as I am right now. And every time that I've seen it since then, it is that every time.
That's awesome.
Like the Lord of the Rings trilogy for sure that's a good one that like you just leave it and you're like, depending on watching extended cuts or not, and you're just tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one for me, and like to go back to Marvel movies a little bit, like the
Hmm.
the first first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like I remember like going to
Hmm.
the theater to see it. Like as an adult, it made me feel like I was watching Star Wars for the first time again. Um, and it's one I could watch a million times, never get old, and have that same kind of feeling of just
That
hope and fun and adventure.
I love stories with found family like that, where like, all characters come together that like are all from different walks of life and they learn how to work together really well and, proceed to the outcome. But Guardians of the Galaxy definitely like the first one was really, really good.
Hmm.
I'm sure they all are, but that one's the one I'm more familiar with.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, all the good Disney movies I think we mentioned too probably all make you walk away feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
That's usually something you can get or expect out of a
Kanan mentioned
good.
Space Jam in the chat.
I guess a good one.
That's a huge part of childhood.
yeah,
Yeah, Space Jam was hilarious.
Mhm. Remember, like, you ever like me and Kanan have talked about this before, but like drinks and food and stuff that are in things that are in movies and stuff from your past, like the water that they drank in Space Jam. Do you remember it thinking that it was probably the best tasting water of all time? Or like it's kind of hard to explain what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean? Like
no,
they
No, I know
no,
what you
just
mean.
somehow like old movies or shows or whatever, there's something they're eating or drinking. It just seems like that is probably the best tasting thing ever. The little treats, the delights from Chronicles of Narnia.
Yes.
Like, you remember like trying to
What a
think
good
about what
call
that
out.
tastes like. The Turkish delights, that's what they were.
I mean, we would all love to eat a candy that's so good that you'll like sell out, Jesus or whatever, lion Jesus for it or the family. I was like, I remember trying to like really rationalize that too, reading the books when I was a kid and just being like, man, this Turkish delight. Like, where can we get our hands on this stuff? And then
Yeah.
years later, you find out it's terrible. No, that one. And then Brandon, you mentioned earlier the pizza in Goofy movie,
yeah. The
or
pizza
one of
and
them.
the is
Uh,
yeah, the pizza and like the spray cheese. Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
and then
They definitely stocks went up that year.
and another one I'll mention is it's a little more far out there, but the leaf that the dinosaurs eat in the Land Before Time. There's like one where
Yes,
like the
dude.
water like
Oh
collects on
my
top
God.
of it and everything.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I can't believe you. Yeah, good job. That
Yeah.
that is the
That's
one.
what I'm talking about.
It's just so filling. I remember All Dogs Go to Heaven as well had a pizza scene with the
Yeah,
puppies, and
Yeah.
it just then yeah, I want some cartoon pizza. Like I don't want pizza that's like it's from a cartoon.
yeah,
I want to eat some cartoon pizza, dude. It just looks
Oh,
like
Lion King when
sauce.
they were eating the bugs, dude.
Oh
That's
yeah, it
they that it looked good. They were like
did.
eating them like spaghetti noodles, and it just was so appetizing.
Oh my
I gotta
God.
say
Now I'm
hi to
wanting to
my buddy
Google.
Tyler in the chat. Uncle
Yeah.
Sloppy, what's up, bro?
I'm Googling best food in
Yeah,
animated
it
movies.
shouldn't. It shouldn't have looked that good. You nailed it.
Yes.
And then
What are
like
some others?
going from that as a kid, now there's like an entire like anime genre that's just like food porn essentially. And it
Yeah.
I'll like that's one thing I'll say about
You can exploit it.
the Ghibli movies. Like anytime like they put any
Mm,
kind of ramen
bacon.
or anything on there, it always looks good.
Yeah. You're so right, dude. And it's always just like they're pairing these big thick cuts of like pork or bacon and stuff. Yeah. They make bacon and eggs look just like a miracle, which I guess it is, you know. Um, yeah. Good call out, Barrett, for yeah, food and movies, dude. I wish I could think of more now. I do. It does come to
I'm
mind
trying to think of
the
some too.
tasty,
They come.
the tasty wheat scene in the Matrix. You remember that one?
Yeah.
It's like they're eating that mush. You ever eat tasty wheat? That's what I was going to say. Quotable lines. Like I remember just being in the lunchroom, like at work or something, and we'll be eating some meal that the company brought in, and it would be like, "You guys remember tasty wheat?" And just hoping that someone remembers that's how the conversation started in the Matrix, and then just going with it. Um, yeah,
I had one for a second, forgot it.
there's a whole movie on Netflix called Flavors of Youth, and it's from the people who did the Your Name movie, and it's like three short anime stories, like an anthology that incorporate different foods, but it is like what you described. It's just like let's just focus on pouring steaming broth into ramen and stuff, and it just looks amazing. But then there's like a narrative happening surrounding that food and why it's important or something. But it's don't watch it unless you're eating something. You know what I mean? Because you're just being like, oh my God, I gotta get some ramen now.
When I think about food and anime, I just think about the Death Note. I take a potato chip and eat it. Whenever he's like trying to
Yes.
like convince the cameras that he's doing his homework, and it's like the most dramatic, like I'm doing my homework scene of all time.
Do you guys have a favorite action movie? And we don't have to go through every genre, but
I mean, we watched a really
a
good
lot
one
of people,
yesterday.
yeah, that's true. A
Oh,
lot of people
that
really
one
like
was
the
awesome,
John Wick
man.
movies.
The John Wick movies are pretty good. Um,
I have not seen them.
People
I've
die.
heard great things. People, yeah, I've heard a lot of people die over a dog. Sounds
yeah,
sounds like really meaningful.
I was gonna say the narrative like to any of those movies just really doesn't matter. Like the action
It's
sequences
gotten
are all
worse
good.
too.
Yeah, but I still love all of them. Um, outside of that, the Kingsman. I don't know if I've seen the last one, but I know the first Kingsman movie was really good. Um, and it stood out like for the same action wise, like some of the same reasons that the Everything Everywhere All at Once movie stood out too, like similar action scenes as that. Man, I had to think a little bit more about other ones though.
Yeah,
And
action
once
movies
again,
don't like I've seen plenty, but I mean The Matrix, obviously, a lot of fun action
Yeah,
in it.
for sure.
Kill Bill, great, great action in Kill Bill. Um,
yeah, I need to see Kill Bill again.
it's been a
Speaking of
long time since
Quentin
I've
Tarantino,
watched it. Volume two more recent, but
yeah, those are good movies. On the topic of That's a Quentin Tarantino movie, right? Did y'all see Hateful Eight?
Yeah.
I didn't
That,
finish it.
dude, I watched the extended version on Netflix, and it's like 4 hours long, maybe longer, and it's so good. I was thinking about that the other night. I was like, that's
I
a
liked
really good
Inglorious
movie.
Bastards. It's one of my favorites of
Yeah,
his. I liked it a lot. And Django, of course.
I really like Pulp Fiction, but Django is probably my favorite of all of them.
Yeah,
yeah,
Django's
it
so
was
good.
really good.
I love the contrast between the bad guy and um, the reason I say both of those because like the guy that plays the bad guy in Inglorious Bastards is the good guy in Django, and he plays both of them perfectly. Like he is
Yeah,
one of the shittiest people ever in Inglorious Bastards, and then turn around and like he's a really cool character in Django.
Yeah, for sure.
so probably parting question before we wrap up. Um, Favorite movie or top three? We can kind of maybe do top three. Y'all think you can come up with three? I can
Mm,
go first.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. Think um Contact, like I mentioned. 1408 just never gets old. I could watch that. I've probably seen it 30 times and saw it in theaters when it came out. Um and gosh, The Matrix. Yeah. I think The Matrix to me is like one of the most I think it's one of my favorites because it's like one of the most immersive movies. Like you get sucked into it does such a good job at introducing you to everything that's happening. And I think part of that's because like Neo's going through it at the same time as well. Right? Kind of and the same principle for like Harry Potter, right? Is like he's getting introduced to the world, so they're carrying you through it really well, showing you like this is what this is, and they're answering all these questions and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that was really good, and then just had such a good script. And then at the time, the special effects were unbelievable, right? But yeah, 1408 just because it's fun and it's scary, just scary enough um, to where you get that feeling of suspense and build up, but nothing tragic happens. Really, everyone walks away from the movie. Um, and then just watching someone in a haunted room as it just screws with them for an hour and a half to me is just the perfect setup. Yeah, then Contact, just because the message of it is so positive, and then that movie was just so realistic. Like, if you want to imagine, like, what would it be like if we got contacted by some species out there? Like, what would that look like? And it's almost to me, almost like exactly how it probably would unfold. Even with all the BS politics they portray in the movie too that are happening. So I don't know. For me, that was really cool.
Good picks. My top three would be just because they're the most easy for me to go and rewatch at any point. Um, The Goonies. I love that movie. That movie is comfort. That movie is like it's funny, adventure, it's all that just exciting stuff. Um, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, just because it was the first one. It's the best one in my opinion because it was like it brought that world to life, and it's one of those things I can put on at any point and not want to turn it off or just enjoy it the entire time. Um, I mean, I've said all these. I'm probably gonna have to go with Billy Madison just because like I love that humor. And I
Yeah.
don't know, it has a like just has a lot of sentimental meaning to my child, like, you know, younger years growing up. Um, that movie is just so damn funny. Well, a movie honorable mention that I forgot to mention earlier is Grind. I loved Grind is one of my favorite movies, like comedy wise too. Just an old skateboarding movie that was, I mean, a few guys that wanted to go pro, and that was a really, really good one.
So I'm gonna have to go with. Um, I know we didn't really talk about it this time, but we talked about it last week, and that's School of Rock. Um,
Mm.
Mainly just implications on my current music taste. Outside of that, when we did mention Dead Poet Society, it's probably definitely favorite Robin Williams movie, but it's probably up there with favorite movie in general. Um, Man, picking three is tough though.
Yeah.
Because I'm like at this point it's like, well, okay, did I go with a comedy? Did I go with action? Um,
That's why I
but
was like the three easiest for me to like easiest to watch. Like easy, I know I can sit down and watch this and not be upset about it or not like, you know, feel that's why I had to pick mine because there's so many good movies too that it is hard to pick three.
but to go in a different direction, talk about uh, I guess a genre we didn't really touch on, uh, rom coms. Like I would have to go with definitely maybe uh, as my third movie. Um, yeah, that one too.
I
Like
don't
it,
know
Good
if
it's
one.
I've
got
seen that.
like it's got some like musical implications just because like most of that movie is like set in the 90s. Um, but yeah, hard to go wrong with Ryan Reynolds in anything either. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, those are probably my three. I mean, a week from now you probably ask me and I give you totally different answers. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no,
tough.
that's fair.
Because I've probably got like three or four like honorable mentions where I'm just like, yeah, at any given time, like those five or six could probably like rotate in and out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could probably do a list of top 100.
Yeah, it'd be easier.
Yeah, and it would be a lot easier. The ranking them would be hard, but it's like if I could just have a pool of it. But yeah, I agree with you. Hey, before we wrap up, we got another we got a question from Miss Killigan that I think is really fun. And he said, what are our favorite movie dragons? Um,
Toothless.
Toothless. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny how many good movie dragons there actually are when you think about it.
The Hungarian
Um,
horntail from uh yeah.
I mean, listen, mine's gotta be Draco from Dragonheart. And if you haven't seen Dragonheart, then
I
I feel
have that, I'm
sorry for
sorry.
you. That movie will fuck you up at the end. Like in a good sentimental way. Um, which is funny to say because, it's a movie about a dude and a dragon hamming people, more or less. Honorable mention is Smaug from the Hobbit movies. I thought he was amazing.
The freaking circus. I don't know if that's who did him in the movies, but I know that's who did him in the books. That's the most recent, or like I re-listened to the Hobbit books recently, and his Smaug is so good.
Dude, who did him in the movies was Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor
Oh, okay.
Strange.
Probably
Yeah,
still great.
Yeah.
It's been a while since
Now,
I
but
haven't
what's
seen the
funny is
Hobbit
they
movies since
they
early on.
they changed his damn voice to basically sound like Andy Serkis though. So yeah, Andy Serkis is the man. Honorable mention to that guy.
I would probably have to say Dragon from Shrek.
You said it at the same time
That's a
as
good one.
yes. Like
I
as
did.
you
I
said
did.
it,
Yeah, I just now seen
Uncle
that.
Sloppy's comment popped. That's awesome.
That's so
It's a
funny.
good one too. Shrek is like I remember it being such a good movie, and I'm ashamed I haven't seen it in so long. I know it was like that's one of those like really quotable ones we were talking about earlier. It's
Hmm.
like the whole I'm making waffles.
Yeah.
Clean your hands, wipe your face. Yeah, that part.
Yeah,
Blade.
dude, so good. We need to rewatch that.
Yeah,
That's gonna come
I
around
need to
soon.
watch. Need to watch all of those because I think I stopped watching after like the second one, and I've heard they're all pretty good. I did see the Cat and Boots movie, um,
Mm.
and that was actually really good. I was surprised by that.
The most recent one.
Yeah,
Okay, I know they've
that's a
done a
nice
few
boat.
things with him. But
That's so funny. I'm gonna read the comment. Good old Shrek.
But
I
I
got a
did.
funny Shrek story, but I can't share it on here.
Dragon wise,
Too
I
offensive.
want to also point out the river spirit from Spirited Away was one of my
Oh yeah.
favorites. And then this one isn't movie related, but just from Dragon Ball Z, Shenron is my
Mhm.
yeah,
favorite.
yeah, for sure.
When the question first got brought up, I kept wanting to like say Godzilla, but he's technically not a dragon. So, but
There's what Sisu from Raya and the Last Dragon. That was
yeah,
a great movie.
Mm.
I know Miss
We could do a
Kelly.
whole episode on dragons.
Yeah,
Hmm. But
There's so many because there's so many good ones in books, video games, movies.
yeah,
There's cool art that's out there that has nothing to do with anything besides itself. Yeah, I was thinking Reign of Fire had some cool dragons in it, but that movie was kind of eh. Um,
Skyrim
but
dragons.
yeah, Iron Dragons. Elden Ring has tons of dragons.
Imagine
All the Dark Souls
glitching through
games
the.
have dragons. Yeah. I like the mods for Ultimate Skyrim where it's like Thomas the Train Engine.
Yeah, I was just saying
Those are
dragons
the
replacing
oh
Thomas
my
the
god,
Train.
it cracks me up, dude. It's so funny.
So good. Ooh, the crate
Yeah.
dragons from Star Wars.
Hmm.
It's cool. I
Great
don't like.
dragons.
Yeah,
Google
I don't
these.
know if I like as much as what they actually look like as what they could have looked like. It's like a um,
Okay.
you don't get to see enough of them in like Mandalorian. Just kind of get to see like the head of it, but it's like a big sandworm almost.
Yeah, it gets blowed up real good, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, dragons are cool.
Uh, the mythosaur. We'll just go ahead and consider that a dragon.
The
yeah,
mythosaur. Oh, is that
Hmm.
the beast that they're like lord up with or whatever?
The Mandalorian like logo. It's
Yeah,
like a
okay. Yep.
like almost has like tusks.
The big
Uh,
boy.
yeah, and we're gonna
Yeah, I
see
got you.
one.
We are?
Maybe.
Okay. That's pretty cool. It's a big creature, right?
It's huge.
yep,
Yeah, and the Mandalorians can ride them. So it's
That's pretty cool.
gonna be. I'm excited to see where that goes. That's a different topic, but
Yeah. Dragons. This dragon wormhole we've been led down. Oh,
yeah.
get me
Well,
started on Star Wars.
yeah, definitely another time. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, gotta hop off here.
yeah. Well, it's been fun. It's been a great topic and chat. Thank you for joining in so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
thanks. Cool, y'all.
Yeah,
Well, have a
lots
good
of great
night.
suggestions and stuff in the chat. Thanks for playing along. We'll see you guys next time. We'll try and next one we're gonna try for on what, maybe Tuesday or Thursday? You guys know?
Thursday we're going to
I'm
see
not
Advent
sure, yeah.
Children. Um,
Thursday we'll see Advent Children. So um,
might be not until next weekend maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll follow up.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for
Cool.
checking it out, guys.
See ya.
Yeah, thanks y'all.